Are we?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm
Good.
good. I'm good. Listen, I'm excited for our conversation today. It's not the first time we've chatted. It's not the first time we've chatted. But I am looking forward to, what kind of comes up from our conversations. And, see about accepting each other's flaws.
Ooh, hot topic.
I know. I want to see if I'm trying to see if I can get these 2 seconds, 2 seconds. I want to see if I can see live chat because I can't see it on Restream. So, guys, we're using Restream so we can stream both of our channels at the same time. But I want to see if I can use this right now. It says we're live here. I want to see if I can get there. Okay, sorry. Give me 2 seconds. Sick. Cool. You can still hear me, right?
Yes, you're good.
Cool. I'm up and I can see the live chat if we get some.
Okay.
So the question is, Tanisha,
Oof.
should women accept his flaws?
Mm.
A man's flaws. Should they be accepted?
I think that the biggest thing is to define what a flaw is. Someone left a comment on my YouTube channel. I thought this was very, very valid. So they said there's a difference between trauma and an actual flaw. And I think that definition is important because a flaw can be that, I don't know, I procrastinate, maybe I'm a little bit less organized than you, things like that. But if we're talking about trust issues, anger issues, things like that that are linked to trauma, that's a little bit different. And I think that's when it gets a little bit more of a gray area.
I agree. I think that's fair. So it's like there are some flaws that are, kind of more trivial, and then there's some like fundamental flaws in men.
Absolutely.
So what would you say? Okay, if I ask you, what are
Mm.
like two trivial flaws that you think people could dismiss someone on that you think that's not really worth dismissing on?
That's not worth dismissing.
Yeah.
I think that history with children and relationships. So if you're a person who doesn't want someone who has kids, and people do often bend on this, if you're set on the fact that you don't want someone with kids and you overlook that, I think that's big. Or
Yeah.
on the flip side, if you know you want kids and the person that you're dating or interested in doesn't want kids, that's something that you shouldn't bend on because that's probably going to cause an issue in the future.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to make sure you have the same goals in mind. Um, do you think women are like, more accepting of men's flaws today or less so? That
I
laugh
think
tells me everything I need to know.
women have always been more accepting of men's flaws, in my opinion.
You think they're more today than compared to 50
I
years
think
ago?
this has always been the case. I think that women are more, once we like someone, we tend to have rose colored goggles a little bit more. Men, I think men are pretty simple. It's either what you want, you're what they want, or you're not what they want. And they're not going to budge on that. They might entertain you, but they know pretty early on if you're someone they want to take seriously. Women, we can have certain qualities. We have a checklist that we want. And like I said, when you start talking to a guy, if you like him, you might start overlooking some of those key qualities. So I think that's why we see a lot of women who have high expectations, as they say, going for the Pookies and the Ray Rays of the world.
Right. I think that's fair. I do think here's the thing. I think a big part of why the perception of women expecting of accepting men's flaws is because women have a much longer list. So
Mm,
it's like if you have 20 things that a guy has to tick and he only ticks 15, it's like, well, I'm accepting 5 flaws here. Guys don't really have a long list.
okay.
So it's kind of like
Mm,
like you said, you're right. Either he likes you or he doesn't. But because a guy's list isn't that long, it's
yeah.
like, okay, well, there's way less you need to quote unquote tick off for a guy. So we're actually just way more accepting, right? But the
Mm,
few things we do want, if you don't have it, it's not happening. Like we're not playing this game. Whereas for women, it's like, well, you've got a bunch of things. I'm only getting 70%, so I am accepting a lot of his flaws. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know, because then it's a thing where it's like quality over quantity, right? So if I have this long list of things and I'm like, okay, this might be a long list of qualities I want, but I'm willing to budge on it. Even if you have three things on your list, but you're like, these are absolutely non negotiable, who is the person that's more willing to be compromising or accepting in that case?
I would say the guy because if you've got less things, more people can qualify.
Okay, maybe. It
Do you not
depends on
think?
what those things are. Because okay,
That's
let's
true.
backtrack then. What are some of the things that you feel are non-negotiables for most men?
Okay. He has to be attracted to her, right?
Okay.
I didn't say she has to be super attractive. I said he has to be attracted to her. That's pretty non-negotiable. Um, Sexual fidelity, sexual loyalty, I think is non-negotiable. If we're going to choose her to be the mother of our children, we have to know the children are ours.
Hmm.
And I'd say peace. She brings peace. Like, that's not saying she can't say anything, obviously, but more, this is what my grandma would say to my sister. Like, you have to know when to choose your battles.
Okay.
So I'd say peacefulness, sexual loyalty, and he finds her attractive.
Okay, but
Everything else is pretty negotiable, I'd say.
what is peace though? Because I think when you start breaking down peace, then there's a lot of different subsets to that, and it starts opening up more things on the list. So I don't think it's as simple as saying peace. What is that comprised of?
Sure. So, like, one component, like I said, is choosing your battles, I'd say. So, for example, I don't know, let's say you just had dinner and, I don't know, let's say your man, he's had a long day, and he said he was going to do dishes because you cooked, but he's not done the dishes and he's gone to bed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have every right to be like, you said you're going to do them, you've not done them. However, if you're like, okay, he's had a long day, he's gone to bed now early. Yeah, he said he's going to do the dishes, but you know what? I can let it go. I can do it this time.
Mm.
That's choosing your battles. It feels something like, hey, you said you're going to pay the electricity bill and you've not paid that. That's different because
Okay.
that affects the stability of our relationship and our home, right?
Valid.
So I would say, now you can at a later date. Now, here's the thing, you can bring it up. You can. I don't want this to be like, oh, he didn't do the dishes. I'm going to keep that as ammunition for our next argument,
Oh
in
yeah,
like
no.
2 months' time, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to do that, but you can be like, the next day you can be like, look, babe, I know you're really tired. I just, you said you did the dishes, but I did them for you because I care about you. And if he's a decent guy, half decent guy, who go, no, babe, I'm sorry. You're right. Like, I was just so tired, had a long day. I'll get them next time or whatever. Right? He might even be like, okay, let me make it up to you in some way. So I think that's peacefulness. One thing in one of the videos I shot today, if a man can fall asleep on your lap, whew, you are his peace.
Yeah.
If he can come lie on your lap on the sofa or whatever, and you're just stroking his neck or something, and he falls asleep, you're winning. You are winning. Because one thing I say is that I get there's a cliche of a woman wanting a man's time and attention, right?
Right.
And it's not that a man doesn't want to give that, but what I say is a man's relationship with his time and attention is the same relationship a woman has with her kitty cat,
Yeah.
right?
I agree with that.
It's not that he doesn't want to give it to you, but it has to be willingly given.
Would you say that's the case with money too? Time, attention, and money?
Whether he wants to give the money.
Yeah. So his willingness, the way that women feel about their bodies, do you feel men feel that same way about their wallets?
Yes, she shouldn't expect it from him.
Mm.
Unless, because, when you get into a relationship, you can you talk about maybe what you want from each other, especially if you're taking each other more seriously, you're about to move in together, and sometimes money can come into it. She might be like, okay, well, if you cover the rent, I'll cover the food or something. But no, it shouldn't be expected, because I think back in the day, fair enough, because women couldn't earn their own money, but now y'all can. Actually, women out earn men under the age of 30 who are single.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to you. Kudos to you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I would say. Why? What would you say?
I think I have learned that yes, the relationship that men have with their money is similar to how women feel. So it's kind of like, I don't know. just because we've been talking for X amount of time doesn't mean I'm supposed to have sex with you. And I think men on the flip side say, well, just because we've been talking X amount of time doesn't mean that I want to spend $300 on a date, doesn't mean that I want to pay your bill. So it is interesting to understand that dynamic, because I think that's where a lot of our disconnect kind of comes from in the earlier parts of dating, is that we see value in two different things instead of trying to understand the value that each person interprets in a relationship.
I agree. I have a question for you.
Okay.
What are some non-negotiables in a man that you feel most women have?
Ooh, that I feel most women have.
Yeah.
In all age brackets, or is it a certain age group?
Yeah, let's say like a woman's looking for a long-term partner.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is, what do you think are some non-negotiables that most women do have?
The interesting thing is that I think a lot of the non-negotiables that women have today are things that may or may not impact the long-term success of a relationship. So I think kids is a big one, right? Kids can be iffy. I feel the same way. I'm really iffy about dating a man with multiple kids or by multiple women. I don't want to do that. But that doesn't mean that he necessarily won't be a good partner if he's an involved father, if he has kids, right? But that's one that's big for women.
Yeah.
Lack of drive. So someone who is not ambitious in terms of their career and making money, I think common ground across the board. That's the case for all women. Some women want you to make a certain amount of money. Other women don't really care, but they want to see that drive is there. So I feel like that's the most common one.
So ambition and drive.
Sounds
like the main one.
Yeah.
Kids, fair enough. What about, I don't know, I'm trying to think. What about, what's like an arbitrary thing? I mean, height comes up all the time.
Height does come up. Yeah.
It comes up all the time.
But I don't know if I would say that's a non-negotiable, because it varies for women. I have some friends who really like shorter men. Then I have some friends who are like absolutely not dating a shorter man, or it's relative to their height. So if I have a friend who's 5'2", she might date someone who's 5'6", and that's a shorter man. But someone like me who's 5'8", when I look at someone who's 5'6", it's different. So I feel like I don't know if that one is streamlined enough for it to be something that all women would consider a non-negotiable.
Is it fair to say most women want a man who's taller than her?
Oh, yeah. I would say that. Well, most women, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, unless she's like, if she's like 6 foot, then she kind of has to, like she has to kind of accept that, okay, maybe most guys she's going to date are going to be smaller than her.
True. Yeah. Like I said, the only exception to that with the whole height thing is if he has a lot of money. If a man has money, a lot of these non-negotiables, they become, maybe I can deal with that.
Okay. So speaking of accepting men's flaws, do you think the more money a man makes, the more flaws she's willing to accept in him?
1000%, yes.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
I mean, women like security, right? Especially if you have a woman who wants a certain type of lifestyle. A lot of women would trade in fidelity, quality time, things of that sort for being able to get materialistic things. Like, how's the saying go? Would you rather cry in a hoopty or a Rolls Royce? I think that mentality is what a lot of women have.
That's a very good one. Huh.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. So here's the thing, because I would say that for the average man, the more attractive she is, the more things he's willing to tolerate. I think that's true. Unless he is a man that has options.
Okay.
Because I think the more options you have, the more picky, I guess the more picky you can afford to be. I don't say picky, but you can afford to dismiss stuff you don't like because you have other options, right?
Right.
But I guess women always have options. Pretty much. May not be the options they want, but they always have options.
Yes, but I think the biggest difference, I could definitely see a man who is more attractive being less tolerant than a woman who is more attractive, because he doesn't have to deal with the fact that he has a biological clock. I think even if you're an attractive woman, once you start to see that you're getting older, you do start to negotiate on certain things or tolerate a little bit more because you don't want to feel like you're wasting too much time, but men don't really have to worry about that.
I think that's fair. I guess that depends on the age of the man and the woman. I also think that I think because men are willing to accept more flaws, I think that's also why he's probably more dismissive than a more attractive woman. Because generally, if you have a very attractive woman and she has quite high standards, that means let's say 1 in every 100 guys actually meets that criteria, and she actually gets right. So she's less likely to dismiss him because she's like, I know how hard it was to find a guy who ticks all these boxes. Whereas because guys don't have that his list for boxes, it's like, okay, I have 100 women, 40 of them tick these boxes. So if you're giving me something that I'm not a fan of, there's 39 others I can go to. Does that make sense?
That does actually. So are you saying that women, we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot by having so many expectations in comparison to men?
I don't say shoot yourself in the foot. It's a double-edged sword. There's pros and cons, and the same for guys. If the higher standards you have, then yes, you'll be dealing consequently with a lot of less. You're not open to men who you feel don't meet those standards, which means you're not kind of wasting your energy or time. But then the byproduct of that is that when you find a man who does meet those standards, he has all the leverage.
Okay.
Equally with guys, if a guy has, if he doesn't really ask for that much, the pro of that is that, okay, you probably have more women to choose from that you're willing to kind of take and accept, right? But then the con of that is that sometimes it can mean that you're too dismissal and you actually let go of something that actually could have been special for you.
Okay. So touching, like kind of expanding on that, because I don't know, this idea of men being more lenient or forgiving or accepting of flaws, I don't know, it's just not resonating with me. You guys can tell me what you think in the comments, but I think what happens is that men are more willing to let go of standards that really don't have a long-term impact. So let's say you want a woman who has a big butt, very shapely, but you meet a woman and she has everything else, you can overlook that. I think that women, we are accepting, but we're just accepting of the wrong thing. So in the woman's perspective, if I want a guy who is super kind and he's thoughtful and all these great internal qualities, but I also want him to look a certain kind of way, I think that women would be more prone to take an attractive guy who doesn't have the internal qualities versus taking a not so attractive guy that possesses all of the internal qualities that they wanted.
Why do you think that? Why do you think it's a guy's attractiveness determines whether she'll take it or not?
I don't know if I really have an answer for that. I mean, I think I've talked about this in some of my videos before, that I think a lot of modern women, we are pretty superficial and we're not really thinking long-term stability, how this is going to be a great partner versus how they make us feel in the moment. And I guess you can kind of say that ties into men being more logical than emotional. Logically, if you want a partner to last long term, you would think about those other things, but women, because we are because we're more prone to focus on our emotions, I think we focus on the right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I do think that part of it is that women seek more fulfillment from the relationship than men do. I think women ask for more from a relationship, not like as in, it has to make her feel happy and she has to feel like she's growing and she has to feel inspired, all of these things. Whereas for not every guy, but for a lot of guys, it's like, is she attractive? Can I get on with her?
Okay.
They don't ask for that much, really.
Yeah.
So I think because it takes it's the whole, and depending on the individual, but the feminine seeks connection, love, and intimacy. So if you have a woman who's very much in her feminine, of course, that's what's going to fulfill her. Do you know what I mean? That's going to be a very significant part. Whereas the masculine tends to, and we all have masculine and feminine traits in us, but the masculine tends to seek direction, freedom, and ambition and purpose. So it's like, if you have a masculine man, he can have the most loving family around him, but if he feels he's kind of aimless and purposeless in life, he's going to feel very unfulfilled. Equally, if you have a woman who her core is naturally feminine, she can have the most flourishing career and lifestyle that she's providing for herself. But if she doesn't have connections, relationships, and love, she's going to feel very unfulfilled. So I think part of that is because I also think that's, part of why, majority of relationships end with the woman leaving, because I think she requires more from the relationship.
Okay. Would you say that the way that we are selecting, we being modern women, are selecting our partners is due to the fact that we might be a little bit more masculine in nature than some traditional women have been?
As in the guys that you're selecting?
Yeah, so to clarify, right? So if we're thinking about the things that define someone who's masculine versus feminine.
Yeah.
So feminine, a lot of feelings, inner feel good type things, we'll just kind of categorize it as that.
Yeah.
Masculine would be a lot of the financial leadership type things. So do you feel like women, because we are operating more in masculine energy, we are seeking men who don't truly cater to our feminine side, again, making us feel good, the men who are thoughtful, because we're not balanced when it comes to our masculinity and our femininity, if that makes sense?
It does make sense. No, I don't think it's down to that, because even masculine women still seek the same guys that other women want. They still seek the top guys, right? I think a big part of maybe women's not best choices, especially when they're younger, is because we have, compared to our parents, especially compared to our grandparents' generation, we have delayed adulthood. By the time you were 22, 23, you were married and you already had a kid. You didn't have time to be, oh, well, I'll see this person, see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, then cool, I'm out.
Right.
Whereas now, people are getting married much later, having kids much later. We have extended adolescence, is what I should say. So it means when we're younger, the time in which we feel we can we can choose partners that have more of a risk long term has been extended. The issue is, while that's been extended, women's biological clock hasn't been extended. So they get to a certain age where they're like, crap, I'm 31 and I'm single, and I had this vision of when I was this age, I'm going to have something. Now I need to hunt down, because ironically, when a woman gets to that point, the very attractive guys who all the other women want, that's the last guy that they want, because they're like, I know this is not good. I've been around here before. I'm not going to get something long term from this guy. I want a guy who's ready to commit yesterday.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So then other things take priority, like, is he stable? Is he nice? Is he kind? Now, a lot of women will say that they feel that they're settling because their perfect guy has all the quote unquote alpha qualities, but then has the commitment and stuff. But yeah, I think that's what I would say. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. I think that's kind of why men get frustrated, because the good guys, kind of what you just described, the women are seeking them later on in life versus going with them when they were younger, when the men were actually going for them. So I think that generates a lot of animosity, where it's like, you didn't want me then, but now that you've had your phase, you've gone through all the bad men, you figured out that wasn't working. Now you're coming for me, and I feel like I'm a second choice. So yes, that does make sense.
Let me ask you, do you think, is there an equivalent scenario where you feel like either a guy comes back or a guy makes wrong decisions and then he starts choosing the right one?
1000%.
Yeah.
But I think it's more shunned when women do it, because again, the ideology is that men have all the time in the world. You can be 60, 70 years old and get a 21-year-old if you have money and you have status. A lot of women don't necessarily have that same grace, but I think it happens a lot. I mean, I think that's what happens to a lot of good women. They might go after men who are not so good when they're younger. They get treated which way, and then they might be a little bit more jaded and change trajectories about the type of men that they want, or how they treat men. But yes, men always double back. That happens very, very frequently.
Yeah, I think because women didn't always used to choose reckless men or men who weren't good for them long term.
But you know why that is, though?
Why?
I think a major thing is that we don't have our families helping us vet men anymore. We aren't bringing men to meet our fathers, our family to get their approval. A lot of times you're already dating someone, sleeping with them, situationship, whatever, and then you bring them to your family. It's like we're
Yeah,
operating backwards.
that's very true. So would you recommend to, let's say you have a woman in her mid-20s and she's looking to find a guy to settle down with, would you recommend
Mhm.
say, okay, before you even start sleeping and get into a relationship, he, I don't know, would you say her father needs to meet this guy and his uncle or something, or what?
Ideally, I would say yes, but the problem is that our fathers aren't present as much as they were in the past. So,
Yeah,
if you're a woman who grew up with a single mother and you don't really have any of those father figures present, then what do you do in that case? Some women are
that's
lucky
very
to
true.
have brothers, or maybe you have uncles who are present, but if you really don't have any men there to help you, it's like, in theory, that's good, but who do they go to?
That is very true. That who do they go to? It's funny because I used to feel like I feel like it was women who would teach girls what maybe what guys want, but maybe yeah, it would be the fathers who would vet them. To be fair,
Yeah.
it would be the fathers. I want to take a shift here, really
Okay.
quick.
Do you want to,
Uh,
before we move on, do you want to
yeah,
look at some of the comments? We do have some good ones. So I
yeah.
think that
Let's get them going. Let's see
start
what comments we've
responding.
got going on.
Okay, y'all. You guys are going in on the chat. I love it. We love the interaction. Okay.
Yes, I haven't
So
got
one
any.
that I saw was that when we were talking about money versus sex, right?
Yeah,
In terms of what men and women value. Someone said, I think it's Kesh. Kesh said men value their money, women don't value their bodies. That's why women give their bodies easier than men will part with their money. How do you feel about that?
men value that. You know what? I'm gonna say that's true, and I'll tell you why. Because it is harder to earn good money than it is to have a good body.
Mm,
You have to work.
okay.
If you earn good money, you've worked harder than somebody who has good body. Especially if you're young, you don't like for the average person across all ages, right? If you're young, you've not worked for that body, not really. Like if you're a young, attractive woman who's 22 and you have an hourglass figure, you have not worked nearly as hard as the woman who's 42 to get that figure,
Right. I agree with
right?
that.
But if you're a man and you're earning 80K plus a year, which for most people don't earn that much, but if you do even get to that much, the steps you've had to take, the promotions you've had to do, the hours you've had to put in, you've had to work a lot harder than a young, attractive, even guy having a good body. So yeah, I think that's true. I think because if everybody started obese and then you got into great shape, that you'd be treating who you choose give your body to a lot more. Like you take a lot more care of
Yeah.
that.
You think a
Yeah,
part of that is that women don't truly value their youth while they're youthful?
I think they do. I think they do value it. I think they're choosing
Okay.
to spend. I think they're choosing to spend their youth in different areas now. So it's like I don't know. It's like if everyone was given $1 million when they were 18, it's like, okay, you can either use that million to party or you can use it to make an investment. And I just think most are just using it to party
Mm-hmm.
because they're seeing everybody else doing it. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, I might do this investment, but I'm seeing all my girlfriends go to Vegas and meet these superstars and stay having this luxurious lifestyle. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you make an investment like that, like it's the return comes much later. It's delayed gratification. So I don't think it's that they don't. I don't think it's not that they're not using it. They're just using it in a different way.
Okay.
I think you've got the comments there because it's on your channel, so you can go through another one. Any comments
Okay.
that come up, just say, "Yo, let's go through them."
Gotcha. Okay, there's a lot. So one thing I'll add to what you just said is that I think that the way millennial women valued or utilized their youth is a lot different than women nowadays. And I think that women nowadays are maximizing their youth and their attractiveness to get materialistic things. In the past, I think a lot of women use it to get married and, you know, you want to build a family earlier.
Yeah.
But now I think women have realized, like, hey, I can be an OnlyFans girl, or I can take advantage of my youth and attract a baller or a rapper and get my bills paid. So they are valuing it, but
Yeah.
just not in the way that we're used to.
Yeah. Very true. I agree.
Okay, so let me see. There were a couple other ones on here too.
Yeah.
Let me see. That's why a lot of sorry about depends on a creative person is more. I think that a masculine man who doesn't feel fulfillment and prospering can't be understanding. Okay. I think that the comments so far, we can come back to those, but there is something that I wanted to say to kind of close out accepting flaws.
Yeah.
I wanted to know your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
So, if we're talking about accepting flaws, do you
Yes.
feel like that is something that you should expect of your long-term partner? Or do you feel like you should be working on your flaws on your own time and not putting that, I don't want to say baggage, but that baggage or that expectation on another person?
That's a great question. I think if your partner has chosen you, then they've chosen the flaws that come with that. But I think it's their responsibility to reflect the areas that you need growth in. But ultimately, it's up to you whether you do it. If there's a flaw that is a deal breaker for your partner, I'm trying to think of a flaw that you would own that would be a deal breaker that you'd only find like a year into a relationship, but I don't know if there is.
A year
Is
into
there?
a relationship. Ooh, I don't know if it would take that long, but let's throw something out there like trust issues.
Okay. Well, if you have trust issues, and how are you going to enter a relationship when you have trust issues?
A lot of people enter a relationship with trust issues.
Yeah, I know, right? But it's like, well,
Yeah.
so here's the thing. If you're aware of it and you know you have
Mhm.
trust issues and you're saying, okay, I recognize that this is not conducive to my relationship that I'm entering into, then you have to be actively working on it. Otherwise, you are going to sabotage your relationship.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. So I had this conversation with someone, was a woman the other day,
Yes.
and her perspective, we were actually talking about insecurity, which I think is another good one too.
Yeah.
But she was saying that, you know, insecurity, that's something that when you meet the right person, they'll understand that you're insecure and they'll work with you. I don't know if I'm unforgiving, but I think that when you're single, that's all the stuff that you should be working on. If you have insecurities, that is your job. We talk about intentionally dating. I don't
Yeah.
think that people talk about intentionally being single. That is your time
Mm.
frame to work on yourself. You learn from your past experiences. But I think what happens a lot of the time, people see being single as their YOLO, live your best life type of phase. Like,
Yeah.
what do you think people do? If they had a really, really bad breakup, right? What is a
Yes.
common thing that you see people do when they become single?
Oh, they go out and do all the foolishness. Like,
Right, have a whole phase,
yeah,
right?
they have a phase.
Instead of
Yeah.
like exactly reflecting on, okay, this relationship, it didn't work for these reasons. I could have improved in this. You are kind of pushing that work to the side. You're not doing the shadow work, focusing on the dark things.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of substituting that with sex and being reckless. And then people hop into another relationship. So when did you have that time to reflect?
That's very true. Here's what I'd say. If you're aware of your insecurities, because sometimes there'll be some insecurities you're not aware of until you enter a
Mm,
relationship.
yes.
So if you're not aware, then you're not aware, like, and you can only find that out when you do find that out. You hope that you have the level of emotional maturity and awareness to grow on that. If you're what I can't stand is when people go, oh, I know I'm insecure on this, but I'm not going to do anything for it, and you have to accommodate for it.
Yes.
Nah,
Major problem. Major problem.
that's on both sides. But like, you can't. I think that is it's selfish. And it's narcissistic. I'll be honest. Like, how can you say, oh, I'm aware that this is an area that I need to grow in, but you have to compromise yourself because I'm not willing to do the work yet? Nah, that's silly.
Exactly. I agree. So with that being said, then how do you determine what flaws you're willing to tolerate from someone?
It's a very, very good question. I always say you have three non-negotiables.
Okay.
Everything else you have to be flexible on. And when I say flexible, that's not me saying, I don't know, let's say if one of your non-negotiables, or if something that wasn't a non-negotiable was like has to have a great body, right? I'm not saying, that might not be one of your non-negotiables. I'm not saying that, okay, you have to accept for him to, get completely obese and not even work on himself or whatever, right? But
Mm-hmm.
that's something you have to be flexible, as in, okay, he's not there right now, and he doesn't have to be there, but it's okay to be like, I would like him to get there.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So you
Mm-hmm.
have to be flexible in that sense. What flaws? Anything that's not conducive to a long-term relationship. So, anything. So I'd say anything, any flaws to do with appearance is not. It's not like that's silly. Just chuck that out. Like if you're like, oh, but he doesn't have straight teeth, or he's losing hair. Like, nah, because at the end of the day, if you're growing old, you're both going to be losing hair. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? That's like a silly non-negotiable. Or not. Sorry.
A question. I'm sorry.
Go on.
Interrupt you. Is that the case for men and women?
It's a good question.
And you guys can chime in on the comments. Please let me know. The statement was that anything related to appearance should be a non-negotiable because that doesn't really impact the longevity of your relationship. So is that the case for men and women?
I'm going to say, I'm going to okay. I think it's different.
Okay.
And the reason I think it's different is because a woman can meet a man she's not physically attracted to, but then build attraction to him. That does not happen the other way around. A man's not going to meet a girl and be like, I'm not attracted to her. Gets to know her and goes, now I'm attracted to her. Rarely happens. Rarely.
Okay. But you think that happens for women?
You said it yourself. You said if he makes more money, she'll go there.
That's valid. That is very, very true. Yes.
I'm sorry, with all due respect, you don't know who Susan Boyle is, do you?
Say that again.
You don't know who Susan Boyle is, do you?
No, who is that?
Oh, okay. Well, I hate doing this because everyone uses her as an example, but I'm going to say it. Lizzo. I don't care how much she makes. I don't care.
Don't do Lizzo like that.
I know. She's an incredibly talented person. She's just not my type.
Right.
So whereas, listen, you've seen Mark Zuckerberg. If he was working at B&Q, ain't no one checking for him. But because he's Mark Zuckerberg, everyone's checking for him.
You could be a 5 with potential as long as you got a little bit of money.
Listen, any 5 with over $1 million net worth and a blue check mark is no longer a 5. They're a minimum 8 at that point.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So in regards to appearance, I guess I was saying that for women, and mainly because the attraction to your partner is important. But the reason I was saying with appearance is more specific to women is because the attraction can come from other areas, can grow from other areas. For guys, it's generally not the case.
Okay.
But I would say, like I said, I'd say the same for guys to a certain extent, in the sense of she doesn't have to be the most attractive girl you've ever been with, but as long as she's someone that you want to get physical with, which is important to men, then it was important to women too. But ultimately, the attraction is there, is what I'm saying.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I know you said a while back that you wanted to switch gears. So what were you thinking?
I did. I wanted, because I've seen, obviously, I like watching your content. You've got great content. You took a shift, well, I say recently, I guess in the recent maybe 6 to 9 months, about dating with intention and using sex more wisely.
Yes.
So talk to us about that.
Oh goodness. So I actually have been dating
Any
more
guy
frequently.
interested in you now, he's like, fuck, I missed my chance.
I have been dating, and it's been a very, very eye-opening experience because I think that dating from the headspace that I'm in now really illuminated the fact that I was very unintentional about the way that I dated before.
Yeah.
And I think that a huge overarching theme is vetting. Women do not vet enough. I think that we go out on dates, we're not necessarily asking the right questions, and I don't think that you can date intentionally if you don't have a vetting process. So I definitely used to be a girl who would accept a date if I just wanted to go get something to eat. I have been there before, right? You just want to get out the house. And it's like the complete opposite now, where it's like I use my time more wisely. If I don't see this as a person who I can be in a long-term relationship with, and there's no point in me going out on a date with you.
Okay. So what facilitated this shift in you?
I mean, I think you get to a certain point in your life where you realize that stuff just isn't working. That realization for me happened about 3 years ago. And then I went through a period where I just didn't date anybody, like just did a lot of reflection. What do I need to fix? I had a lot of things that I had to work on. And then now I'm like getting myself out there.
Yeah,
And so I think just learning from past mistakes, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results.
that's very, very true. So how has that affected the kind of men that you're choosing to actually give your time to now?
I think that I would definitely say higher quality men. The men who I have encountered, they're doing pretty well for themselves. They have solid careers. They're not, as I said before, the Pookies and the Ray Rays of the world. I've had that phase. I'm past that point. And
Yeah,
so it is higher quality men for sure. But I think it's also the way that you see yourself definitely impacts the men that you attract. So I think that for women who are struggling with getting low quality men, something internal isn't right. You might have some low quality or low value attributes that are attracting those men.
I think that's really fair. Um, what does high quality look like? Does that mean, oh, he's more attractive? Does that mean he's more stable? Does that mean he's more intelligent? Does that mean he's older, more experienced? What does high quality look like to you?
It's so interesting. I'm probably gonna shoot myself in the foot by saying this, but I feel like high quality doesn't necessarily mean that they are more attractive.
Mhm.
That's a plus. But honestly, I feel like the men who I used to date in the past are probably conventionally more. Ooh, let me pause before I say that.
Whoa! We almost got her, people. We almost got her.
I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying they're unattractive. What I'm saying is conventionally attractive in the sense that in the past, I would go for the men who were 6'3" and they have the tattoos and they have all designer clothes and, things that might attract women from all different avenues. So now I don't focus so much on the materialistic side of things
Mm.
or just seeing that they have value because of how they look. I'm looking at more of the innermost qualities. Hope that clarified. But to answer your question, definitely driven. I think I do like older men, more mature. They know what they want. They're not still figuring out if they want commitment. They're also very intentional about what they want.
Yeah.
Someone who I think can protect me. So very masculine energy. If we're out and there's a conflict, I'm not worried about being the person who has to speak up. You can defend my honor. Someone who's family oriented. So more of those sort of qualities I think tie into being a high value man.
Yeah, I would say I agree. What about your relationship with sex? Has that changed?
Yes, it has. This might be an unpopular opinion, but I think that when you are dating, you will have the highest success if you don't have sex with anybody. If
What do
you
you mean?
have a rotation, meaning that you're going out on dates with multiple different men, you 1000% should not be having sex with any of them.
Interesting. Why do you say that?
Because I think it's going to skew your perception. With women, what happens a lot is once we have sex with someone, the oxytocin kicks in and starts kind of putting on those rose colored goggles that we talked about. And we start seeing men for the idea of how we see them versus the reality of who they are.
Yes, I think people definitely fall in love with the idea of someone.
Absolutely. I think
That is
women
very
do
true.
that more often than men, but that is detrimental to us every single time.
So
Mhm.
how has that affected when you met someone? You don't have to disclose anything you don't want to.
Yeah.
Um, But how has that affected, like, for example, would you say waiting longer to have sex? How has that affected? Have you had it where a guy started dating you and he was like, yo, it's been like 2 months, I'm out? Like, how has that affected your dating experience by waiting?
Yeah, so I have had situations like that. It's funny because I had a situation with a guy who is kind of what I described before. So tall, has a lot of money, has all that stuff. And so he attracted a lot of women. And so when he came across someone like me who's like, hold on, like, I'm not really into rushing into sex, I think it was kind of like a culture shock in a way for him. And so I think that depending on the man, you'll get a different result. There's some men who can respect it, but then there's other men who are so fixated on them being the prize, and they have such a large ego that they can't handle that. It's like a form of rejection to them.
Yeah, I think there's two things that can be at play. I think there's one that if a girl doesn't show physical intimacy with him within a certain time, he's like, okay, she's just using me for my time and attention. She's not actually that into me. Because I'll be honest, I've done that before, where like I was dating a girl and it didn't go anywhere physical for over a certain period of time. I was a bit like, she's just not that into me, and that's okay. Do you know what I mean? And then she messaged me being like, oh no, I was so into you, but blah, blah, blah. But then by that point, I think it's all like, you just want my attention back.
Wait a second. Can we expand on that though? Because I was watching a dating coach one time, and he was saying that it's kind of the whole sex thing and making a man wait for sex. It can be a double-edged sword, because sometimes if you make a man wait too long, it becomes a conquest for him. And so it's not more so, I want to get to know you. It's like, okay, you made me wait all this time and I'm irritated by it. And so now I'm going to work to have sex with you and then just be done with you. So I guess with that being said, why do men see waiting for sex, or a woman wanting to wait for sex, as a bad thing?
I don't think it's a bad thing. Okay, shall I tell you what it is? Okay. There's nothing wrong with making a man wait. But if you express to him that you've had sex quicker with men in the past, you shoot yourself in the foot by doing that. Because what he then goes, my guy over here took you out on one date. I've been seeing you for 2-3 months now, and you've not even stayed over because you want to take things slow. And like I said, nobody wants to feel like they're getting a worse deal. And it's not about, oh, I'm getting a worse deal, but it's like, either a guy's going to start resenting the fact that you're waiting with him when with other guys you didn't wait, or a guy's going to do, which what I've done, is be like, okay, she's just not that attracted to me as she needs to be for this to work. Because, depending on the guy, but for me personally, if me being with a certain girl means the dynamic is where I'm having to almost chase for her affection, that's not a relationship I want to be in. And that's not a dynamic I want to be in. So I think women shoot themselves in the foot if they go, yeah, I used to like sleep with guys easy and stuff, but now whatever. A guy just hears, if you don't do it with me, you're obviously just not into me that much, because if I was one of those guys you were really into, it would have happened straight away. Do you know what I mean? And especially, if a guy has, it sounds bad, but because of the way the landscape is, if he has other girls who are wanting to sleep with him, then he's like, okay, well, these girls want me. They have genuine desire, and they question the genuine desire you have for them. If you express that genuine desire made you be more promiscuous easier before. Does that make sense?
It does. So I have a couple of things to say to that, because you touched on so many valid things. So I will say, to explain why women do that, it's kind of like, and I totally understand your perspective, because it would be the equivalent of a man saying, I used to take women to all these expensive places and take them on vacations really early on. And I realized that doesn't work for me. So I'm just going to take you to cheap places because I don't want you to use me for my money. You would look at that and be like, well, what does that have to do with me? I'm a completely new person. So I get that. I think that a lot of women, they just feel like they made a lot of mistakes in the past. And typically the man that they do wait for sex is the one they actually really like. And I know it sounds backwards, but I think a woman would be more prone to have sex with a man who she doesn't really care about, because it's like, whatever, it's just casual satisfying my needs versus having sex with a man that they really do care about because they feel like it's going to ruin things. They think the man might just want them for sex. It's going to change the trajectory of the relationship. So that's kind of how we process that dynamic.
It took me a long time to understand that. When I say understand that, as in to understand the logic behind it. And it's a reflection of how different men and women see sex. Because men see sexual intimacy as the prize. So it's like, well, if you're making me work harder for the prize than this guy, you clearly like him more. Whereas I get it now. You're like, no, it's because I want things to go so well. I'm scared of fucking it up with you. That's why I'm not sleeping with you. I understand that. But then here's what I then question. If women know that, why do they get confused when the guy that they sleep with really soon, why do they get confused that those guys don't want to commit to them? If women do know that. Because it's like, oh, if you know that, then you would, do you know what
I mean? I think that what we're describing, so the women who decide that it's probably smarter to wait because they know the impacts of casual sex, they learn that later on in life. And I think that kind of speaks to what we're saying. So
Right.
when you're younger, if you really haven't had someone helping you or kind of coach you, show you the ropes of dating, you're going to make those mistakes and you might have sex super early, especially if you have insecurities and you feel like having sex with someone is a way to make them like you. Because a lot of women think that too, like, okay, he says he doesn't really want commitment, but if I have really good sex with him, then maybe he'll change his mind. That's something that we see all the time. Yeah. And I think that it takes a certain amount of growth and maturity to get out of that mindset and self-love, valuing and respecting yourself. But for a lot of women, again, that's happening later on in life.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So it's two separate group of women who are operating in that sense. The one who knows to wait has already had that experience, essentially, is what you're saying. I had something off that. I can't remember. Should you look at some of the comments? What are we saying?
Yes, I do have a comment that I want to expand on. So we have a comment from Absolutes. And they said, let me go back here because it's moving. We're getting a lot. 1 second.
That's all right.
Okay. Reality flaws. Oh my God, where'd the comment go? Bear with me because I was looking at it this whole time and I'm like, I really want to respond to this. Oh, yes. Okay. So Absolute said women should never be discussing their previous sexual relationships with men. That's the wrongest thing to ever do. And I would have to agree with that. So that's actually one of the things that I learned with dating. I think that women have a really, really bad habit of oversharing. No, certain things, like you don't have to say all the details. You can say things that will definitely impact how your relationship might go. And you can say things that might help the person make an informed decision about you. But I think we go into way too much detail. Way too much. We focus on the past and it shoots us in the foot every time.
Why do you think that's something women do? Why do you think women tend to really overshare in that part of their history?
I think a lot of that ties into us being emotional. And I think that for women more than men, sex is tied to emotion. And so if someone doesn't really have emotional intelligence, meaning they understand their emotions, they can convey their emotions to someone else in a healthy way. It's kind of like word vomit in a sense, where it's like, I'm sharing my emotions with you and I want to do this because I want us to have an emotional connection, but you're not doing it in a healthy way.
Yeah, I think it's I think if women understand that for a man, if you're a woman that he's taking seriously, men are very sexually territorial a lot of the time. So even though it's your past and it's already happened, he doesn't want to hear it. He doesn't want to hear the details. He might be like, oh, you tell me about your dating experience and what you've learned. And that's cool. If the story is relating to part of your growth, I think I understand that. But like you said, that you're showing the details and stuff, because all that does, it just makes him picture you having sex with another man. And he always imagines a man that is better than him every time.
Is that why men have an issue with women having a high body count, or do you feel it's more layered than that?
I think that's one of the reasons. Yeah, if a woman has a very high body count,
Mm-hmm.
a guy will think, well, if she's been with 50 guys, the chance that I'm top is quite small.
Okay.
And we all want to feel that we're the best that anyone's ever had, even if we know it's not really true. We want to feel that it is. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So I think that is one of the reasons. Yeah, guys have insecurities about that. You know,
Okay. So then I
especially
have
if,
another question. Oh, sorry. Continue, please. Go ahead.
well, no, I mean, one thing I was going to say is that as a common thing is that you know, a very common insecurity in guys is their dick size. If they think you've been with 50 guys, like out of those 50, one of them's going to be a mammoth, and I'm not a mammoth. So,
Whoa, not a mammoth.
you know what I mean? So yeah, but what was your question?
Okay. So since we're talking about oversharing,
Mm-hmm.
this is like where I think women are confused and we feel like we get conflicted messaging, because it's also seen as a bad thing if women don't share their number of sexual partners. So, what is the proper way to approach disclosing your sexual past so that it's not seen as you oversharing and will eventually cause you to shoot yourself in the foot?
I hear that. In regards to sharing how many,
Mm-hmm.
there is no right answer. Zero. Because if it's too low, he's not going to believe you a lot of the time. In this day and age, most guys would be like, you're 28, you've only slept with 3 guys. That's cap. We had sex within the first month. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's really high, then he might be like, oh, I don't know. It's going to play a part. In regard, here's the thing. I would say, in regarding sharing sexual experiences, if it's related to like your personal growth, maybe your emotional growth, if it's related to growth that is going to make the current relationship better, I think it's good to share. I think it's
Mm.
okay to share. So if you're saying, okay, well, if you go, okay, well, I, you know, oh, I had this kind of sex and I didn't really enjoy it because I wasn't really giving. I was being very selfish. So I don't want to do that. I want to do that with someone I trust. Then the guy goes, oh, cool. This is a guy I can trust. But if
Okay.
you're like, yeah, me and my girlfriends, we had this wild orgy. It was like the best summer ever. How is that
Mm.
conducive to the relationship you want to build with him? Like, he's just imagining you taking multiple guys at the same time.
Mm.
So I think any sexual history that contributes to the growth that's going to help your current relationship, I think that's absolutely perfect to share. If a guy's like, I'll be honest, if a guy's like, oh, don't share any sexual history with me whatsoever, I'm like, okay, he's got an insecurity about that. That's kind of on him. Because realistically, like, this is 2022, we're all adults. Like, most
Mhm.
people are going to have a sexual past. You may not want to hear it, and a guy might be like, look, I appreciate you have a sexual past, I just don't care to hear it. That might be the
Maybe
thing.
that's fair. Do you feel like that's a sign of insecurity where he says he doesn't want to hear it? Or is that a sign of maturity to say, I understand that you have a past, I don't need to hear about it? So, like Brian said in the comments, as long as you can say, I don't have any children, I don't have any diseases, that's the main thing that I care about.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think if a guy says, I understand you have it, but I don't need to hear it, I think he's acknowledging that, look, I want to continue to see you in a good light, and I don't want something that isn't actually necessary to kind of taint my view of you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, because women say all the time, like, oh, well, how many guys I've been with shouldn't matter to guys and how they see it. And I agree, it shouldn't, but it does. It shouldn't, but it does. So if a guy goes, okay, on the off chance there's something in there that could affect how I see you, I'd rather just not hear it, because actually it's irrelevant, because what's happened. So I think it has good awareness, really. And I don't think it's specific to guys, because I've had it with girls, been like, I know you've been with a bunch of girls, but I don't want to hear about it.
Okay.
So
That's fair.
yeah.
What do you think about sharing? Let me rephrase this. How do you feel about men asking women sexual questions early on in the dating process? Is that a red flag if I'm on a first date or a second date with someone and they start asking me questions about sex?
What kind of questions?
Um, the one valid question, so I'll start with this, is I think it is okay to ask how important is sex in a relationship, because I think that's something that can definitely impact you. So that's valid. I'll answer that.
Yeah.
But when it starts coming to questions about what's the craziest experience you've had, what are some of your sexual turnouts, so things that are a little bit more intimate, do you feel like that's a sign of a man who only wants a woman for sexual reasons?
If he asked that on the first date, it's difficult because a first date you could spend 2 hours together or you could spend the whole day together. I know most people don't, but I've had a first date where I spent like 10 hours with her. To be fair, I don't think we talked about that, to be fair. I think, okay, what I would say is this. If he is directing the conversation to a sexual one, that is a red flag. But if it comes up naturally, and because some people are open to sharing straight away on the first date, you know, because they're quite comfortable in that sense. And some people, sex is way more intimate to them. So they're like, I don't really know you or trust you that well to share that kind of stuff. So I think that's where it's kind of on the individual. But if we're talking about a red flag to look out for, is if a guy directs the conversation to sex, where it's like, you've just finished talking about you celebrating your grandma's birthday, and he's like, so what's your favorite position? Like, bruh, like there's no connection. Like, clearly one thing is on your mind. So that's what I would say. I would say there's nothing wrong with sharing on the first date because it depends on the individual. But if he's directing it to sexual nature, then that should be a red flag. Yeah.
Okay. Absolute said that men should save sexual questions for 3 dates and beyond. Unless women ask, don't bring it up. You're going to look like a horn dog.
I agree.
I do agree with that. I do.
I wholeheartedly agree. Let me ask you something. Have you, using sex more wisely now, what, I don't want to say rules, but what are behaviors you apply now to sex for you in regards to when you have sex with a guy compared to maybe before?
I think that I think commitment is a big thing for me. And I say that because then I know some men will say, I don't want to commit to someone without knowing how good the sex is. Get that. But there have been situations in the past where I would talk to someone for a while and it looked like we were going in the direction of a relationship, and then I'd have sex with them. And that quickly turned into situationship because they got comfortable, right? So they already have sex. Why do I need to commit at this point? And so for me, I think that having that level of commitment with someone first is important. Because for me, I don't want sex to be the main thing in a relationship. It's important, right? So it definitely is an important part. I'm not going to be unrealistic and say that it isn't. But for me, it's like the icing on the cake, the dessert. It shouldn't be the entree. And I think that a lot of people are approaching it from an entree perspective. And so I avoid men who are like that.
Okay, I hear that. Do you think, and it's a genuine question, do you think that by today's kind of standards, do you think that most people are going to be reasonably accepting of entering a relationship without having sex with the person first?
Most people, that's a hard question.
Let's say most eligible bachelors.
Most eligible bachelors,
Yeah.
probably not. But I think that they would definitely be more willing to wait before they get into a relationship, boyfriend and girlfriend, versus saving themselves for marriage, because that's more of a commitment, more of an investment. So I think a lot of men really are not going to wait until marriage happens.
I agree. I think there's a happy medium.
Okay.
I think there's a happy medium where you having sex with them doesn't turn into a situationship, but it doesn't necessarily ask for straight up commitment before it. Because I think for a lot of modern men, because especially the nature of the dating game, you know, they're like, well, I'm not gonna commit someone if I don't even know if I enjoy it with them. And what I would say is this: I think I completely agree in terms of waiting to have sex. You know, you have to provide the space for him to form an emotional bond with you. But what I would say is that there is a window to ask for commitment once you start having sex.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
So what I
What's
mean
the
is,
window?
okay, so what I mean is this. You know when you have those you know when you have those people who stand with like food samples outside like a food store so you can try a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like, you know, we have Mr. Pretzel over here. Imagine if someone is standing outside, like the shop owner or one of their staff is standing outside with like samples, right? And what we do, we walk past, we take a sample, we go, oh, that's really nice. And if we're cheeky, we'll walk past again to take another sample, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what usually happens is if you come back for like a third sample, they'll be like, no, you need to go buy one now. We're not just gonna give you free samples. Because if you came back, took one, took a second one, and they took a third sample, and they took fourth, took fifth, sixth, and then after the ninth sample you come back to take, they're like, hey, you need to buy one. You'd be like, I've pretty much had the equivalent of one, so I'm okay, I'm not gonna buy one.
Oh, that's
Right?
a very good analogy. Yes.
Yeah. But if you've had two or three samples, and then you come back for more and you say, okay, now you need to buy one, there people are way more likely to buy one because they know they like what they're about to buy. So this is what I'm
Okay.
saying. So it's something that I call the window of opportunity for women. And it's the point that he's had sexual intimacy with you, that he knows he likes what he has and he wants more. That is the perfect opportunity as a woman to demand for commitment.
Okay. Because
So
already
I
there's
go
there
on.
for him to commit because he's seen that he likes it. He's gotten a little piece, but you don't want to give him too much, or else he won't.
Yeah,
Less
because
likely to commit. Okay.
yeah, exactly. Because it's kind of like, you know, when you start having sex with someone new that you really like you can't get enough of each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Women, this is where you have the most leverage. This is
Okay.
where because he wants it from you all the time. And if you've given enough space that he likes you and you say, hey, I'm really enjoying the way this is going, but in order for us to continue, I need to know that we're exclusive. He's way more likely to do it then. Because the issue of with situationships, the reason they don't turn into relationships is because if he's been having sex with you 6, 7, 8 months, like he's gotten used to having sex with you.
Yeah.
So you're like, hey, I want commitment. He's like, well, I've kind of had you the way I've wanted you, really.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Thankfully,
mean?
yes.
You know, so that's what I would say, in my opinion. Obviously, you know, you do whatever it is you want to do. I would say that's the happy medium. So it kind of, you having sex with him doesn't jeopardize the potential for a relationship, but also you're not asking for, okay, you have to commit to me before we've even done that, because I think it's hard to find that kind of man nowadays.
Okay. So to clarify, would you say that a woman who has had sex with a man one time, he really likes her, has more leverage than a woman who has not had sex with a man yet, but he also really likes her?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I would say if a man's dating two women, the two girls he's dating, he likes them both. One of them he starts having sex with, the other one wants to wait. He's going to prioritize spending time with the one he started having sex with
Okay.
because he wants to have sex with her and he really likes her. And so
Mhm.
I would say the window of opportunity is what I call it. It's anywhere between, if you're having it's like numbers. If you're having sex, let's say 2, 3 times a week,
Mhm.
anywhere between 4 anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks after you start having sex is the window that women should ask for commitment.
4 to 8 weeks? That seems like that's a lot of times to have sex, though. Okay. Okay, so Jay, he actually said, I kind of disagree slightly on this one because
Go
most
on.
of these guys don't look at that woman as a long-term relationship. So
Which
I think
woman?
this kind of ties into women knowing how to point out signs if a guy is there for commitment or if he just wants sex. So from your perspective, and men, you guys can chime in the comments too. How does a woman know if a guy is there solely for sex? Because men, they do pretend very well sometimes,
Mhm.
versus someone who is intentional and eventually wants to commit.
Okay, the first question I'll ask is, have you had sex with him yet or not?
Ooh, let's say, actually, let's answer both. So the first one, no, you haven't had sex with him.
Okay, if you haven't had sex with him, it's hard to tell whether he's just in it for sex because he can still like spend time with you outside, take you on dates because he wants to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's more about how long is he willing to invest in without having sex. So if he's just in it for sex and you've been on 3 dates and then after 3 or 4 dates he's like, I'm not having sex with this girl, I'm gonna dip because I'm not gonna get it easy from her, then at that point he's kind of gone. So you kind of get your answer. If you have started having sex with him, what I would say is, how much non-sexual time is he willing to spend with you where sex is off the table?
Right.
So if you started having sex with him, and let's say you've had sex a handful of times, and then you're like, hey, let's grab lunch in my lunch break. And he's like, nah, I can't do it. I'm busy or something. Basically, if there is any point, if if he avoids spending time with you where sex is off the table, he's only in it to smash.
Can I ask another question?
Of course.
Do you differentiate the time that you guys spend by being alone together in a house versus in public? Because there are some men who you can come over, you guys can watch Netflix, you guys have a really great friendship and
Nope.
all this stuff, but you have sex. But you're saying that if he doesn't want to take you out on official dates, then that's how you would know that
Yeah,
it's a no.
so coming over and this is hard, right? And this is what I do with my
Mhm.
clients, right? It's hard because you're like, oh, but we watched a movie, we played board games, and then we had sex. Like, that's non-sexual time, isn't it? No, it's not, because sex was on the table.
Okay.
It's when sex is off the table and he's willing to spend time with you. That's real investment.
Okay.
But if you're
That's
like, yeah, I can, and it's hard because you can be like, oh, we go for dinner. Yeah, but it's around the corner from your house. Nah. Do you know what I
okay.
mean? But if it's
Yeah.
like, oh, let's go to this museum and then I'm meeting some friends after, he's like, yeah, let's spend some time. That's a guy taking you more seriously. But if you start having sex and a guy avoids like spending time with you where sex is off the table, like going to each other's house, sex is on the table. It's on the menu. You might not have it, but it's on the menu.
Yeah.
You know? So it's when it's off the menu, does he spend time with you? And if he doesn't, it's a red flag, massive. Because guys won't do that if they're just looking at her for sex. They won't do it.
What if he's having sex with other women while he's waiting for the woman to give sex? Do you feel like that can be a little bit confusing and blur the lines? Because he might be a little bit more patient because he's getting it from somewhere else.
He might be patient in terms of how long he's willing to invest in having sex with her. That's very true. Um, yeah, because he's not desperate, and that's the thing. For a lot of women, especially if she's attractive, and a lot of women are used to guys trying to have sex with her very quickly. If he's not, that makes her go, "Oh, why not?
Yeah.
Does he?
Mhm,
Why can he be so sexually controlled about it? Does he not want me?" That almost kind of makes women want him more, ironically.
mhm.
Um, so I would say if he's having sex with other women, yeah, I said earlier about, oh, after maybe 3 or 4 dates, he might just dip because he's like, we're not having it. That may be prolonged. That is true if he's having sex with other women. Um, in which case I would say it's hard to tell, because if that's the case, then it's only when you start having sex can you really see, like I said, does he spend non-sexual time with you? Is he willing to do that?
Okay. So Absolute says if a man likes you, he's not going to keep entertaining the other women for long. So, with that being said, do you think that if a guy, again, he's waiting for you, but to pass the time, fulfill his needs, he's having sex with other women, is that a sign if that happens for a while that he's not really that interested in you?
Depends. When do you start having sex with him?
Let's say it's going on month two, 2.5 to 3 months. You're entering that bracket and sex still hasn't happened, but he's still dealing with other women sexually on the side.
Um, no, I disagree. A guy can, because a guy's investment isn't in his sexual time, it's in his non-sexual time. And because guys can separate emotions from sex very easy, if he's not having sex with you, he might be like, "Well, I have needs, like you said, so I'm gonna go elsewhere."
Mm-hmm.
But he may really, really like you, because if he's spending non-sexual time with, actually, it's the girl he spends non-sexual time with is the one that he likes.
Okay.
Um, and because guys like sexual variety a lot of the time, if he's a guy who can get that, I always say this: unless you're in a committed relationship or you've had the exclusive conversation, always assume that he's dating other women, because he probably is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that happens in the reverse? So if you haven't had that conversation with a woman, do men assume that women are having sex with other men or dating other men?
I think men assume that guys are always trying to date her. But I think the truth is, I think if a guy has experience with women, for most women aren't looking to be sleeping with multiple guys at the same time, most of the time. So if you're a guy that she's having sex with and you're spending time with her, she's probably not seeing anyone else. Probably. There's always exceptions to the rule.
Right.
But women tend to get more, when they start having sex with a guy that they like, they tend to get more narrow vision sexually, whereas guys don't tend to,
I agree with that,
I would say.
which is saddening, but yes.
Yeah.
I do agree. Hey, Sister George, how are you? Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit more about vetting.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I don't think that a lot of women know how to properly vet. So I will talk about some of the things that I do to vet, but from a male perspective, I'd like to hear what vetting means to you. What are some of the things that you look for? What's a red flag? What's a green flag? Help us out.
As in, how, as a man, to vet women, you mean?
Yes, how men vet women. Hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, the first thing is, does she sleep with us on the first date? That's a big one.
Okay.
It's a big one. That's not saying that us men, we won't do it, because if she wants to, then we're like, yeah. But that more puts her into, this is a short-term thing, not a long-term thing,
Okay.
more often than not.
This is where I think women get mixed messages, because if we go back to the conversation we were having about men waiting, like you don't want to wait if men had to wait in the past. I've had a conversation with men before, and
Mhm.
they'll say, if a guy likes you, it doesn't matter if you guys had sex on the first date. If his intent was to get to know you for commitment, he's going to still focus on that. If you see that he changes up, it means that that was never his intention. Do you disagree with that then? So if a guy was originally looking at a woman for the possibility of commitment and she smashes on the first date, does that change your mind?
It may not be a deal breaker, but it definitely is a big factor.
Okay.
So it's like saying, okay, a guy meets a girl and he goes, okay, the chance of me taking her seriously from what I've seen so far is 90%. They have sex on the first date, might go down to 50%. May still happen, but it does impact it. It does impact it, especially if he is a man that has options.
Okay.
Especially the cases that I've seen where they had sex on the first date and then he was still like, yeah, yeah, let's make this official. I'm just gonna be honest, are cases with men that don't have many options. So the first girl that gave it to them was like, I need to make this work because I don't have many options.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So, and there are exceptions. Like, yeah, there are some. It's not saying it's impossible for a guy to take a woman seriously if they sleep together on the first date. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it does make him less likely to. That is true,
Okay.
I would say.
Okay.
What else? what else is another way to vet? I guess it depends what a guy wants. Personally, for me, I'm very attracted to emotional intelligence and emotional maturity. So a girl that plays emotional games, like, I don't know, like if something's wrong and I ask, hey, what's wrong? Like, you know, I feel like you've energy shifted. She's like, no, I'm fine. And I'll be like, are you sure? I'll ask again. And then it's fine. If it's not at that point, I'm like, you're a grown adult. I'm going to trust your word. If you say it's fine, I'm just reading it wrong. But then if you're like, you see, I wasn't okay. I'm like, I asked you twice. I'm not here to play games. I don't have time. I don't
That's
have
fair.
time. What's another thing? Like I said, men's list isn't that long. Like it's really not that long. We're not that picky in comparison. If she's cheated, whoo, never.
If she's
Never.
ever cheated in her past relationships, or you're saying
Not
so?
for me.
Absolutely no.
Absolutely no.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? You don't think that people can change?
Oh, people can change, but I don't have to play that risk with you.
I feel that.
Nah.
Yeah.
Because I was saying this to I said this in my videos recently. A man's worst nightmare is to invest, marry in a woman, have kids with her, and find out the kids aren't his. That is a man's worst nightmare. So anything that can contribute to minimizing that risk as much as possible based on the woman he chooses is important. A woman cheating? Nah, not doing it. I'm not doing it personally. I'll never say never. That's a massive red flag for me if I'm
Yeah.
going to take it seriously. Like if a woman's like, yeah, I've cheated before. If she's cheated more than once, there is zero chance of me taking it seriously. Zero. Zero. If she
When you
cheated
say more
once,
than once, I just want to clarify different partners, or can it be she slept with the same person but slept with that person more than once? So it wasn't a single interaction where she cheated.
I was talking different relationships. If she cheated in more than one
Okay.
relationships, oh
Gotcha.
nah, guys, nah, no. And I can say the same for women, but women seem to be more accepting of that because I think maybe they look for other things. I don't know. What else would I say? How she speaks about men.
Yes.
Ask fellas watching. If there's a girl you're taking seriously, ask how she feels about men, and what she says will be very telling. Because if she's like, men are trash, they got shit going on, blah blah blah. It's like, oh, you have to be the guy to change her mind to give you a chance. Not worth your time. Nah. Because there's a woman out there who's just as nice, just as kind, just as attractive, who's like, yeah, some men are shit, but there's some good men too, and I want to find that good man. That's what I would say. I think those are the main things for me. Why? Anything surprise or anything that I've not mentioned that you're like, well,
So I'm glad that you touched on how she views men, because I think that's a huge one for me as well. So in general, how men speak about women, but also how they speak about their exes or their past relationships. So if I'm asking you questions about what went wrong, or what do you think you could have done better, and it's a lot of finger pointing, it was them, it never was you, then that lets me know that you lack accountability. So you can kind of look at that to say, okay, this person hasn't grown. So if we have issues, they're probably not going to be able to take accountability.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Oh, there is one.
Okay.
There is one more. And this isn't a deal breaker, but it is something that men have started to look at. And it's her social media.
Oh, yeah.
If she posts a lot of thirst trappy stuff, it's a red flag. Because it means because as a man, as a single man, is it a red flag? It's a small red flag because you, as one individual, you will never match the validation she gets from the thousands of users online. Never.
Yeah.
You won't do it.
Yep.
Now here's the thing. I wouldn't call it a deal breaker. I definitely wouldn't call it close to a deal breaker. Because everybody posts stuff on social media and everybody wants validation. That's why they post, guys included. So it'd be a bit hypocritical to be like, she posts for validation. Well, if you have a social media, bro, so do you, realistically.
Chef's kiss. Thank you for acknowledging that. Yes.
Oh yeah, it's true. But I think if that is all her social media is, I think it's a little bit concerning. I won't lie, it's a little bit concerning. But then, like I said, it's hard because if you're very attractive, if you've worked to be very attractive, you want to show it off. I get it. You want to show it off. But yeah, I'd say that's just something that more men tend to think about. I'm just being honest.
That's valid. I mean, I judge people on their social media too. And I recently got pushback from this, right?
Go on.
So my perspective is like, I like to see how people think. So this probably ties more to Facebook, maybe some other platforms, but Facebook tends to be more discussion based. If I see a lot of ignorance or, very one-sided belief, someone who's very biased, for me, I'm like, that's someone that I don't even want to deal with. And some people have the perspective that their social media personality is not the same as their personality. But that way of thinking in itself to me is a red flag because that means you don't understand the importance of reputation. You cannot be someone who dates me and feels like you can say whatever you want on social media. There's no consequences and that's not a reflection of you. Why would you do that? I think people often underestimate the importance of reputation.
That's so true. That is so true. And anyone who anyone who posts about their dating dilemmas online, like,
Yeah.
oh, this guy, blah 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 blah, and you may not say his name, but when you see those Instagram stories, like, when guys blah 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 blah, like, that's freaking annoying. Like, this guy just, and I'm like, because no one wants their business aired out. So it's like, if you're saying that about this now, it's like, what if we get together, we have an argument, you can be posting about me? That's like disrespectful to the relationship.
Right.
Same as if guys do it too. If guys are like, oh, well, when a girl blah 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 does this, I'm like, bro, like, you need some class, man. Like,
Can you give an example of that? What do you mean?
example of what?
Of what you're describing. So if someone is vocal on social media about something that's happened, can you give me an example of something that you consider to be a red flag for those reasons?
Oh, okay. So like, if I don't know, let's say a girl goes on a date and they split the bill and he doesn't pay, and she's like, oh, I just went on a date and the guy didn't even pay for me. Hashtag chivalry is dead. What's wrong with men today?
Okay.
That just makes me just go, "Ugh, you know what, let me just mute her stories because this is just like, I don't need this messaging in my life." The equivalent for a guy might be something like, I don't know. I don't see guys do it that much. That's the truth. But I'm trying to think an equivalent a guy might post. I must have seen something where, like, he says something like, you see, guys don't post because they know they'll get backlash. They'll know they'll get hate for it. Like, for guys like, like, I paid for this girl on a date and she ghosted me. Girls would be like, well, she doesn't have to text you, which she doesn't. That's right. But I think guys say much less because they don't want to get hate.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas girls will say it and guys will be like, for God's sake. But other girls will be like, yeah, I agree. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. But it's, I think that's why I've just seen more girls post that kind of stuff.
Okay. So we have a comment from Mr. Is it Greenard or Greenard? Please tell me if I'm saying it wrong. But thank you as well to people who are putting money into the super chat. Definitely do appreciate y'all. Much love.
Yeah,
he said recently there was a stripper on TikTok complaining that college educated men pass women like her up for the girl next door. I'm like, right or wrong, perception plays a part in the dating scene. So I think that kind of talks about what you're saying, but expands on it a little bit, where people are kind of doing these posts and complaining about the experiences that they have with dating, but they're not taking the time to process how they're playing a part in that. Do you feel like that also contributes to why you see it as a red flag, or is it more so just a part of, I'm concerned that if we have a conflict, you'll air our business out on the internet?
Yeah, I think it's
You're not a
I
conflict.
think the equivalent would be like back in the day before the internet, the equivalent would be like a woman who loves to gossip about her business to everybody in the village. And it's just like I think it's a respect thing. I think it's a respect thing because you have to, when you're in a relationship, it's both of your responsibility to protect the relationship. And when you're airing your business out like that, you're not protecting it. You're doing the opposite, actually. And the irony is that people think, oh, well, if I air my business out, I'll get them on my side. It just makes them look at you and be like, you, you're disrespecting yourself because you're in this relationship. So, yeah, like I think how people are online, they see it as that's what's being represented by me in public, which is true. It's a public platform. So
Yeah, for sure. I also see it kind of as a red flag that the person doesn't have impulse control. They don't know how to manage their emotions. So they're probably going to be the type who acts off emotion if you guys do have a conflict versus processing how they feel and then communicating that in a healthy way. So I do agree. Yes.
very true.
Yes.
Let me
Yes.
ask you, what are some what's some vetting red flags that maybe you see? And then after this, let's talk about green flags.
Okay, good. So they're not necessarily vetting red flags, but it's things that I look for in general. So I
Okay.
think the very first thing is that we need to do better at vetting before we go on a date with someone. And I think across the board, this is where people mess up every single time.
Before
I've
the
had
first
men.
date, you mean? Sorry.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Interesting.
that if we took the time to at least have a conversation with someone to see if that person is in the right headspace to even go on a date with, then we would have better outcomes. But we don't do that. And that's how you have the men who are frustrated that they paid X amount of money for a date and a woman did X, Y, and Z. Or the women who are like, I got dressed up and I did my makeup and this guy wasn't worth it. And it's like, well, it's because you didn't talk to that person beforehand. So I do
Interesting.
try to have at least one conversation to see if we're even on the same wavelength. Okay, so that's important. Once we're on the date, I've had to learn how to be a better listener. Okay, so again, this concept of listening to understand versus listening to respond. And on a lot of my dates now, I'm actually a lot more quiet and I observe a lot more. So
Mm.
I'll ask a question, right? So one question that I asked a person recently was, do you feel like you're confident, right? Very basic question. And it was interesting to observe the facial expressions, the body language versus the answer that they gave. And I was like,
Mm.
okay, that's interesting. Mental note. I won't press the issue any further, but that's something that I know to look out for a little bit more. Like maybe confidence might be something that is a little bit of a trigger for them or something that they're trying to work on.
Mm.
But I recently watched a video where it said, if you're asking a guy a question and in your mind you already know what you're going to say next, that means you're not listening to him. And that resonated with me. So I'm like, let me just stay quiet a little bit more and then I'll
Yeah.
learn a lot more about these people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
I want to challenge you on having a full-on conversation before the first date.
Okay.
Because do you mean like do you mean like texting or what do you mean?
Preferably not text. I'm not a big fan of texting. I think texting is good for short things, but I think a lot can get lost in translation with text. And
Yeah.
then also, it's easy for me to give a very generic or dishonest response because I can think about it. Whereas if I ask you a question right now, again, I can see how your face responds, your body language, how you respond. If you're hesitant, it's easier for me to get a genuine response. So I would say phone or FaceTime is best.
Okay. I think that's fair. Yeah, I agree. I was going to say as an alternative, to have a coffee date. The first date, low stakes. So,
Mhm.
a coffee date, it's not like dinner. So, I mean, you're still going to make an effort because it's a date, right? You're still going to make an
Yeah.
effort, but you're not getting dressed to the nines for some fancy dinner, right?
Mhm.
Where potentially the guy you don't vibe with, and you're like, this is a waste of my time. But also for the guy, because, most people can afford £7 or $7 for a coffee and not be so jaded by it if it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
But also as well, it's both best for both because if you're not really enjoying the date, you can make up an excuse to leave. you know, like,
Right.
so because it's in the middle of the day. I always do a coffee date first.
Okay.
Always. I never do dinner dates first, never, because I don't know if I want to invest that in them.
Do you ever get pushback from women on that?
Never. I never have.
Really? I wonder if
Yeah.
that's an American thing. In case you guys haven't realized, he's not from the US. So I wonder if this is
From London.
Okay. Yeah, American women a lot are not going for that. If you mentioned a coffee date, I've actually had friends who are like, he asked me on a coffee date. Like, that's cheap as hell. Like, he's just gonna be this way and that way in the relationship, and it's seen negatively if they're not throwing out a lot of money.
Maybe it's a culture thing, but that's part of the vetting process. If me going on a coffee date makes her turn her off, that's a woman I don't want. Because it's
Okay.
like, you should be interested in me because you want to get to know me,
Mm-hmm.
not because of how much I'm willing to spend right out the bat. Also, if you're saying, "Oh, I didn't take you out for dinner," that means you're expecting me to pay for you, and you're not willing to pay for your share. Now, if I ask someone out on a date, I'm going to pay.
Mm-hmm.
But if she doesn't offer to pay her share, that's a red flag.
If she doesn't offer to pay, it's a red flag.
Yep.
If you were the one who initiated the date.
Yep.
Walk me through that, because the way I see it is, if I ask the guy out on a date and I'm like, I'm planning this, I'm footing the bill. So I think the person who does initiate it should pay. But why do you think it's a red flag?
Well, first I would say that's a very convenient position to take, because even when you like a guy, you're not going to ask him out on a first date. So it's a very convenient position to take. I understand. Okay, let me ask you this. If you ask to meet your friend for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
do you expect to pay for them?
Ooh,
Because you
no.
asked them, right?
Yeah.
Why
Okay.
not?
I don't know. I think it's the difference between how we see platonic relationships and romantic ones. That's the only thing.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I ask a girl out, it's because I want to get to know her, not because I'm looking to spend money on her. If she's accepting because she's expecting money to be spent on her, that's a red flag, because the most polite we're going to be is the first date. If she's not even offering to pay her share, in which she has no entitlement for me to pay for her.
Mm-hmm.
If that's her being the most polite, what kind of precedent does that set for the kind of relationship I'm going to have?
Okay.
So
So why don't you just ask for a free first date then? Go out to the park then, because then it seems like it's a
coffee
game.
date. That's what I said. Coffee date.
That's not free. So is it free or cheap? So you don't care if it's a cheap date if she doesn't
Oh,
offer to pay for
sorry.
her.
Let me clarify. It's not about the money. It's about the lack of gesture.
Okay.
It's not about the money. If I ask a girl out, I'm going to pay for both of us. But if she doesn't offer, it tells me something about her mindset about men, or at least about the first date.
Okay.
It's the truth.
You guys, I need you to chime in these comments. Like
Yeah.
I obviously have thoughts, but I want to know what you guys think. So,
Tell me what your thoughts are.
I would probably offer to cover the tip. So I think if we are going out somewhere, if you pay for the main, whatever it is, if we're going out to dinner, you pay for the meal, I'll cover the tip. But I've never thought to say, I mean, there have been instances where I was like, okay, I'll pay for something, especially if I see the guy is spending a lot of money. I'll offset the cost by offering to pay for some things, but there's been times where I didn't too. So I'm wondering now if it was viewed negatively that I did not.
And maybe that's kind of specific for me. I'm not saying all guys are like that, because
Yeah.
all guys aren't like that. I know guys that are like, no, I don't want her to offer because I have to pay. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm going to pay.
Yeah.
But if she doesn't offer, that does tell me something about her character. This is
We have a
me.
comment that I want to acknowledge. I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish, and then I'll say what the comment
Okay.
says.
I, being completely honest,
Mhm.
if I take a girl out on a date and she doesn't offer to contribute in any way, I am not taking her out again. And I'm just talking the first date.
Oh, this is the first date. Okay.
Yeah. Or let me caveat. Or if she doesn't offer, she expresses gratitude for me paying. It's very important.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I think that's a respectable thing to do. Thank you for paying,
Yeah, be like,
Yeah.
oh, I really appreciate you getting this. You didn't have to, but I appreciate you doing it. Because it's
Yeah.
just about appreciation, really. So, but
Okay.
yeah, what were we gonna say?
Huh. So we got a comment from Shea Butter. Hey, Shea Butter. It says, wait, hold on. I thought that men wanted traditional women. And to clarify, in case people are lost, if you're a traditional woman, you are not paying for things because typically the man should be the financial provider. So, what do you think about that? Because it seems like, again, you want a woman to be traditional, but in the sense of paying for things, that seems like it's a contradiction.
I understand that. How traditional do you want to go? Because here's what I would say. Traditionally, in exchange for a man's resources, he got sex.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm paying for you, you better give me something sexual. If you want to go traditional, let's go traditional.
Mm-hmm.
Don't say, oh, I'm traditional, so a man has to pay. Okay, well, then you need to give him some sexual stuff because that's what he's paying for, because that's what the traditional agreement was.
You said something different than what I thought you were going to say. It was
What did
actually interesting. I thought
what
you
did
were
you
going to
think
say,
so?
is she a virgin?
Oh,
Because that technically was the traditional way as well. But yes, I agree with what
yeah,
you
it
said.
was. Yeah, I mean, I don't think guys are looking for virgins. I know a lot in the red pill space, like you're not a virgin, but guys aren't looking for virgins. Not now. Like I think most guys would stay away from virgins unless they were very sexually inexperienced themselves. To be honest.
Because then they want to feel inferior.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because it's like a journey for both of them. But I think if a guy has a decent amount of sexual experience,
Mm-hmm.
I think he would prefer a girl who has some because he wants to enjoy it with her. He's more likely to. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Okay. Someone
That's what I
says,
would say.
so Brian says, if you're a virgin, you're getting everything. That's traditional.
It's true.
Is it though? Because I think that in theory, yes, the idea of having a woman who no one else has had sounds desirable. But then I also think that men don't want to be with someone who they have to teach things. I've seen a lot of men say this where it's like, I'm not going to deal with anybody who I have to teach anything. Well, you're probably going to do that with a virgin. So what is it that you guys want?
Yeah, I think this really I think this is down to the guy. I think
Mm-hmm.
that because I think back in the day, then before porn, right? Good sex was, sorry to sound crude, good sex was just a woman who was tight, and that used to
Yeah.
be a woman who was a virgin. Now
Mm-hmm.
good sex is a woman who knows what she's doing. But like I said, guys, and I say this to guys, like you have to choose one. You can't expect her to be the best sex of your life, but expect her to have like a low body count. Like that's just
Right.
it's not a thing. Like if you want it to be the best sex of your life, you're probably going to accept a high body count. That's what comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
I think guys want more of a balance of, okay, I want her to kind of know what she's doing, but I don't want her to be like, you know, she's been out in the streets. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Yeah, that's what I would say. I don't think a lot of men are looking for virgins. I don't think they
Okay.
are.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
So going back to vetting, one thing that I have been I think I'm having struggles with is
Mhm.
the pacing of things. And I don't
Mm.
know if this is just Atlanta, just the nature of where I'm living, but I find that there's either men who go really, really slow in the sense where you feel like the communication isn't where you want it to be. You aren't really seeing them as often. It's just not a lot of effort. Or you have the men who go super, super fast, where it's like first date, I'm trying to hold hands with you. I want to do PDA, all these type of things. So when it comes to pace, what
Mm.
is a and then we can switch over to green flag. So what's a red flag and then what is a green flag when it comes to pacing?
A guy who was really full on straight out the gate, massive red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he that full on with you when he doesn't know you?
Right. Yes.
Massive red flag. I'd say that for guys as well. Girl who's super full on right from the gate, like she doesn't know you. Like what does she want? Um, if a guy is let's say slow, is he when you say slow, is he asking you on dates? Is he like, oh, when are you next free? I'd like to see you. But it's just, oh, it's like once every couple of weeks, or like what is
Right.
slow?
So the frequency probably isn't what the woman would want it to be, or the pace in terms of, okay, let's say we go on dates, like multiple dates, but we're not really talking about like, okay, what are we doing here? That might be something that a woman would consider being a slower pace.
So is it going on dates but not establishing the direction you're going in?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Um, so is it essentially the question of, oh, what are you looking for? Is that what is that the question, or is it relating to that question?
In terms of the pacing, you're saying?
Yeah, so is it like, oh, we've been on a few dates, but I don't even know if he's looking for a relationship or something casual? Like,
Hmm.
is that what
Yeah,
is that what you mean by
I guess
pacing?
so, because you guys haven't had the conversation of where it's going. So yes, I guess you would be a little bit, you question or you're concerned about where it's going. It's going slow in the sense that you don't know what direction you're going in. Like we're a few weeks in and it's like moving like a snail. It doesn't seem like it's going toward anything resembling commitment.
So what is a woman expecting after, let's say, a few weeks of dating that
It's
she's
a good
not
question.
getting that would say that this is going slow?
Okay. So I think
I'm
that
generally asking. Sorry, I'm
no,
generally
I know I'm
asking.
going to answer. So I think that a big thing is the communication aspect of things. Kind of like I said. So I've talked to some women who feel like, if I've been dating a man for a few weeks, we should be talking every single day. And we're not talking every single day. And it could be like a text, hey, how was your day? It doesn't have to be a full blown phone conversation. But if we're not going in that direction, then it's going really, really slow. Whereas some people are like, no,
Mm.
if we talk once or twice a week, I think that's sufficient. So I think that ties into pacing as well, the amount of communication, the frequency of communication.
Right. Okay. So this is the pacing of the communication as opposed.
Right.
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
Uh, this comes up all the time, like a difference between men and women. Um, women just tend to women will chat just to chat. Guys generally don't do that. Like guys will go 2, 3 weeks without talking to their best friend. Easy. Because generally
Okay.
when guys are texting their guy friends, and this is generalization, but when guys are texting their guy friends, it's usually talking about something specific, like, yo, did you see what just happened on this? Or they're arranging when their next meeting. Whereas I've talked to girls, they'll be texting their best friends every day, all the time. And I'm like, what do you have to talk about? But I think for women, it's understanding that it may feel slow for her because she has a higher need for that than guys do, the communication. Um, but I would say, I don't know. I guess here's my question: Would you rather be texting every day, or would you rather have 2 phone calls a week?
I would probably prefer the 2 phone calls a week.
Okay. Well, I would say, like, if a guy is showing that, okay, he's not really someone who texts every day, then
Mhm.
have a phone call or two a week, or send a voice note. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because if I'm going to put it honestly, a guy texting you is him giving you attention.
Mhm.
It's giving you time and attention. Him texting you, and like I said, guys are happy to do it, but it has to be willingly given. When you're texting, being like, "Give me attention," it's a level of what the last thing you want is for him to text you feeling like a chore to him. That's the last thing you want.
Mm. Yes.
So I think now that's not saying you shouldn't compromise. Like if you go, hey, look, I like to communicate more with someone I'm interested in, then say that to him, and he'll be like, okay, well, I do like you, so I'll make an effort in this area. But then you can also relax your standards on that. Like you don't have to text every day unless he wants to do that. Because some guys will be like that text you all the time, every time. So
Hmm. You know what's interesting about this?
yeah.
It kind of makes me wonder if women see that, so the level or the frequency of communication, and possibly prematurely in situations because we see that differently. And it's
Hmm.
interesting because I've asked this question about frequency of communication and things like that to my friends who are married and then a friend who's single, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
the answer is different. So the single friends will say, "No, you absolutely should be talking every day. Like, why are we not talking every day? Like, there's a disconnect there."
Every
Whereas the
day.
married friend gave more of a perspective where it's like, you still have your own life, it's boundaries. You don't want someone to feel pressure to talk to you, kind of like what you said. So again, I guess is a moment of reflection where we're getting advice from women who might not understand men and, navigating that differently.
Yeah, I think the important thing is there's nothing wrong with wanting more, but just understand that him not texting as much as you like may not be a reflection of how much he likes you. It probably isn't. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? It could be like if you text him Monday, he doesn't reply till Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. Like he's, maybe he's not that into you, or he doesn't like you the way he should. But yeah, it's not an accurate reflection of whether a guy likes you. Like I said, what is an accurate reflection is he willing to meet with you in public where sex is off the table?
So many different perspectives in the chat. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Okay. So we
let's go.
have a message from, I want to go back to the other one. I think it was from Trev. So
Mm,
Trev said that texting calls are for setting up the next date.
yeah. Well, that's what I said. Well, yeah. I mean, that's just what that's what guys do. But I think
Yeah.
I think, if the woman you're interested in has certain needs in this area, guys, you should make
Mhm.
an effort and compromise on that. It shouldn't just be, but yeah, generally, yeah.
I don't know, because that kind of goes back to what I said before, where it's like you should be vetting before you go on the date. So if we have one first date goes well, I feel like I need to collect more information in between the ending of the first date and us agreeing to go on to a second date. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong in feeling that way, but I feel like
Hmm.
that's a huge disconnect where it's like if you don't have realistically, let's think about how long a date is. So you've gone on dates that were longer, and so have I. But for some people, a date might be an hour long, maybe 2 hours long.
Yeah.
If that's the only time that you're getting with someone in spurts like that, are you seeing them realistically? Are you talking to them after they've had a stressful day to see how they handle stress? Are there other things like that you can discuss just throughout the week that isn't them being their representative as you would if you just went on random spurts of dates with them? I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, I hear that, but then you're the one who said earlier that you hate texting because you can think about what you're going to say and you can present what you want, whereas in person, that's more real. You
But you
get.
can have FaceTime though. You can't FaceTime and get a similar
Oh,
type of
I guess you could. There's no reason why you couldn't. There's no reason why you couldn't. But like I
yeah,
said, I think before we were talking about the frequency of texting, but then that's why I said, okay, well, would you be up for having 2 calls a week?
gotcha. So no, to clarify, it's just the frequency of communication. And communication could be any modality: phone, text, FaceTime.
Yeah, like because I'd say like because texting, especially if a guy likes you, because usually in the beginning it's a guy, it's a guy trying not to fuck up,
Yeah.
right? I don't want to text the wrong thing, and that takes energy. It takes mental energy. She's like, if she goes, you know, she texts me at 10 p.m. being like, "Hey, what are you up to?" I'm like, "Shit, does she want a half naked picture, or does she just want to know if I'm reading a book? I don't know." You know what I mean? Like that takes energy. So that takes time and energy for a guy to be messaging in a way where he's like, just be normal and not show that you like her too much, but also text so you show that you're interested. Um, Whereas if you're a busy guy, if you've got stuff to do, it's like, okay, I'm gonna dedicate from 6 till 7. That is your time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a call.
Mm-hmm.
I think most men prefer that because texting throughout the day, especially if we've got stuff to do, just like I don't have time to like thinking about. I'll come back to that. But then what happens is you text in the morning. He's like, I'm going to think about this at 6, and then he messages you at 6, and then your girl's like, he didn't text you for the whole day. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest thing is just compromise. I would
Yeah.
say that's the major thing. So if I'm telling you that I'm a person who prefers more frequent interaction and you're like, you're okay with less, what's the middle ground here? And can we both adjust? And I think if a person's not willing to adjust after you've already expressed how you feel about it, that should kind of tell you if you need to move forward with the person or not.
I agree.
So
Yeah,
I
because
agree there.
relationships is about compromise for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Someone said, and I feel like this is a great way to kind of summarize everything. So Shea Butter said, too many people are playing games and it shows. And I agree with that. I think that's one of my biggest frustrations with dating is that it seems like it's all a mental game. You have all these rules. You don't want to come across as being too standoffish. You don't want to seem like you're too available or too clingy. And I think a lot of people struggle with that because it's hard to just be your natural self when you have to keep all these different rules in mind so that you can be the best version of yourself, which oftentimes isn't even really your true self. You're bringing a representative. So how do
Yeah.
you think about that? Just navigating being your authentic self and dating.
Yeah. I think that I don't know, maybe because I'm an actor, so I'm very comfortable in who I am and being myself, and that's always worked for me. So I've never had to worry about not being myself. I think it's, you take, as you start to build a rapport with someone and start to build trust with them, you take measures to show more of yourself. So if you're only showing 5% of yourself on the first date, maybe the next date you show 20% of yourself. And then because as you get to know them, then you feel like you can show the goofy side and the fun side as well, all of this. So um I think it's not about being someone you're not, but about, you know, it's about building trust with someone that the more trust you build, the more of yourself you show, I would say.
Mm.
But I want to ask you a question. What do you think is a game? What do you think is a game that women play when they're dating? And I'll share one that I think men do.
Um, Sex is probably the biggest one, honestly. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Go on.
You can honestly, I can reinvent myself and be whoever I want to be with every man that I'm dating. Honestly, assuming that I don't have a reputation and my business isn't out there,
Yeah.
I could say, I'm saving myself for marriage, knowing that with the last guy, I smashed him on the first date, right? You can just kind of adjust how you navigate sex to make yourself look better. And I think women are aware of that. And so it happens pretty frequently.
I hear that. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, sex is power, man. It's the
It
power you
is.
have.
Yes.
It's the power you have. The game that men play.
I'm really ready to hear this. Let me get my drink ready.
What is the game that men play? I think the biggest one that I think the biggest game that men play is giving the impression that they're open to something serious when they're not.
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
biggest one. So if she's like, "Oh, what are you looking for?" He's like, "Let's just see how it goes."
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. Do you know the reason it's such a commonly played game is because it's really easy to do. Because a guy may just be like, "Let's just see how it goes."
Mm-hmm.
Because a guy may be open to a relationship, but he also may be open to something pretty casual, which some women are, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
might be like, okay, I don't know if you're the kind of person I want something casual or a relationship, so let's see where this takes us. And that is a legitimate stance to take when dating someone. But then it's easy for guys to say, well, I'm open, let's see where it goes. Because they could, in their head, they could already be like, this is just a casual thing for me. But I can say, oh, let's see where it goes. And then 3 months down the line, when a guy's bored with having sex with her, he goes, you know what? I really don't see this going anywhere.
Uh-huh.
That's true. Guys do that. They do that.
Yeah, it's funny because you know how they say, women are the gatekeepers of sex and men are the gatekeepers of commitment, and I think that we play this dating game accordingly, so that makes
Very
sense.
true.
But I have to
Mhm.
disagree a little bit with that.
Go on.
If a guy tells me, let's see where this goes, I feel like if you're a person who really is serious about dating someone, even if you might be open to the idea of something casual, I feel like that person's response would be that they want a relationship. To me, this is how I would answer the question. This again, I'm a woman, so you guys tell me what you think in the comments.
Go for it.
If I know that a guy is really, really attractive, my top priority right now, I'm intentionally dating, I want a relationship. But he looks really good, and I'm like, okay, if it doesn't work out, maybe he could be my friend with benefits. I'm not going to tell him that part because the main thing that I want is commitment. So to me, if someone is saying, let's see where it goes, that would give me an inclination that they're not really serious about wanting a committed relationship, or else they would have said that. That's a very vague answer. Vague answers about stuff like that is also something that I see as a red flag.
I see what you're saying. So you're saying that even if a guy was open to something casual, if he was open to a relationship, he would state that he wants that.
Yeah. Why would you just say, let's see where it goes? Like, how does a woman interpret that?
Well, I, but then surely if a guy is open to both, surely him saying that he's open to both is the truth.
Okay. Let me use an outside example. All right.
Okay.
You're applying for a job,
Mhm.
right? You would really love for them to pay you 100K a year,
Mhm.
but you might be okay with taking, let's say you would even go down to 80K a year. If
Mhm.
they ask you what you want, you're going to tell them the top thing because that's what you want to lead with. If you lead with something differently, then you give that person the power to take advantage of something that was your second choice. So I would never say, if I'm a woman that wants commitment primarily, I'm okay with something casual, because now that guy knows that, well, okay, I mean, she might have wanted commitment, but she's okay with something casual, and I'm taking the lesser of what I actually wanted.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I don't think that metaphor is a accurate reflection of the situation. So I'll give you another
Okay.
one. They've offered you the position to be a pilot.
Mm-hmm.
They say, now we can either pay you 100,000 and you get no perks, or we pay you 60,000, but you and your family travel everywhere for free.
Okay.
And you sit there, you go, I don't mind which one actually. They're both pretty good.
Mm.
That's different. The example you gave, one is clearly more valuable than the other.
Okay.
They're not different. One is
Mm-hmm.
just more than the other. And I
Mm-hmm.
get it, maybe for you, because if you're looking for a relationship, you're like, yeah, I could accept casual if he's attractive enough, but the relationship is way more valuable to me. Whereas for guys, it's like they're just different, and I'm open to
Mm.
both.
So do you think that's a difference of how we think then? Because for me, again, if I know I want something serious, me getting something casual isn't valuable. But what you just said is like a key thing where it's like I can take either one. It's just a different type of experience. So
Exactly,
is that
exactly. Especially because if a guy's, here's the thing, like if I don't like to say this in this binary term, but on some red pill channels, they say the woman's goal is to get as much time, attention, and resources without giving as little sex as possible. And for guys, it's trying to get as much sex as possible, giving as little time and attention and resources as possible. If we take that to be true, which to a certain extent it is, if we're talking on a shallow level of the dating market,
Mhm.
the casual situation is more valuable to a guy because he's not giving the time, attention, or commitment, and he's getting all the sex he wants.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So there is value in the casual compared to the relationship for him. Because for the relationship, he does make a sacrifice for it. He does. It could be a
Mm.
worthy sacrifice, but he does make a sacrifice.
Okay. Rome Rush says, so wild how this is complicated. I know, because this might sound like very simple to you and it sounds simple to me, but this shows how men and women just think differently. So if
Yeah.
I'm understanding you correctly, it would be the difference of I have a job that pays 100K a year, but one job I go into and I have to put in a lot of energy, effort. They micromanage. The other job, I can just kind of lax off, do whatever I want, but I still get paid 100K a year. So it's like you put in less effort, but you're still getting something of value or something that's beneficial to you. Would you say that's more in line with what you're saying?
Um.
I'm still not getting it. Okay.
Yeah. No. 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 I think that's good. I would say in that example, maybe this just further complicates things. I would say that in the first example of 100K, where you're having to put in the work, you're having to put in more work, but you have higher status. Whereas the second one is you get paid the same, but you don't have the same status. So like, because I'm not sitting here saying that relationships are not beneficial for men, because with the right woman, they are definitely beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes one thing I disagree with the manosphere, the red pill content, is that I think they really underestimate the value of a relationship for a man with the right woman. That is
Mm-hmm.
way more valuable than having a variety of women, for sure. Um, Now, how many of those women are out there is debatable. I'm not having that argument.
Yeah.
Um, but so I'm not saying so in that example, I'd say like, because people care about status. You know, so in the first example, yeah, 100,000 and you get status, but you're working way harder. Or you can still get the monetary benefit, but you don't get the status. It's like, okay, well, the money's great and I'm getting the money.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, do I want to work hard? If I don't want to work hard, I don't care about the status. That's what I'm saying.
Mm.
So yeah,
Okay.
that's what I would
That
say.
makes sense. That makes sense.
I was gonna ask. Oh, should we talk about green flags?
Oh, yes. Please kick that one off.
Okay. Green flag for green flag for a girl. I guess depends on the man. Depends what you want. Green flag is this isn't a red flag, but I'd say this is a green flag that I think guys think about. If she's never had a one night stand.
Okay.
If she's like, I've never met a guy and slept with him that night, I think that's probably a green flag.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, because relationships go up and down. You know, you go through rough patches. You don't
Mhm.
want, oh, you're going through a rough patch. She goes in and out with the girls, and then she slips up. Like, you don't want, you know, if you're like, okay, well, I know she's the kind of girl who's not gonna have a one night stand, and I can trust that when we go through a rough patch, she's not gonna sleep with someone random. That's not gonna
Mm.
happen. It's not impossible, but it's just less likely to.
Okay.
Um, if she offers to pay her share, that's a green flag. If she offers,
Okay.
it's a green flag. It's a green flag. Um, hmm. What else? Why don't you give a couple more before I think of maybe one more,
Yeah.
one or two?
So I would say a green flag is someone who has a good relationship with his parents. I think that's very, very big.
Very
And
true.
furthermore, if his parents are like still married or they have a healthy relationship with one another,
Mm,
that has been a little bit more rare to find in my experience. So
mm.
you always can kind of tell the difference in those men with how they view relationships and the value of commitment and marriage. So
Yeah,
absolutely a green flag.
yeah.
Let's see. Another one I would say if a man actually puts in the effort to plan a date, I'm more of a thoughtful person. And
Hmm.
so that matters a lot to me. So you where that was like super easy for you to come up with, you listen to what I like and you planned accordingly, then that means that you're speaking to my love language and I appreciate that. So I actually value that
Yeah,
more than men who just kind of like dish out money because that's not really a top love language for me.
yeah. No, that's a really good one. That's so
Yeah.
true. Um, hmm. I would say a green flag for a woman is hmm. Wow, I've only got two. Apparently, I've only got
Oh my
two.
god!
It's
Is
so
that a
easy to please.
thing? Like you haven't encountered a
Just
lot of green
so
flags.
I'm just so easy to please. They're all just so easy to please. I'll probably say, I mean, okay, like I like to train, so you know, a girl who likes to train and work out, good for the body,
Oh
good
yeah.
for the mind. You know,
Yeah.
that's important. Oh, I mean, this is hard to see on the first date, to be fair. But if you go to her house and if her house is tidy and clean,
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's a massive green. And that's probably one for guys as well, I reckon. You know,
Hmm.
because I think, you know, Jordan Peterson says, you know, that the state of the home is usually a reflection of the state of someone's mind. You know, so if it's just
That's very
absolute
true.
chaos, then yeah. Um,
I would kind of add on to that and say
yeah.
if a man has self care, I think that's actually very important to me. And self care can
Hmm.
be different for someone. So maybe it's working out, or maybe you take time to meditate, you do something. But if you don't have self care, it makes me wonder, well, where is your frustration going? Like, what do you do when you're having a bad day? Does that transfer onto your partner? But if you do kind of process your emotions and you can communicate your emotions,
Very
that's
true.
another huge, 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 huge green flag for me.
I hear that. I have a
Mhm.
question.
Yeah.
What if they say that they are, I don't know what you are, and you don't have to disclose this because you'll get hate either way, I'm sure. What if they say that they are conservative?
Yeah. I would need to expand a little bit more on what that means to them, because I feel like that's a little bit more vague. Now, if you have beliefs that are very, very strongly contradicting mine, then that's an issue.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I would have to get a little bit more context.
Yeah, conservative over there, that's Republican, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the reason why I said that is because, again, with that, when it comes to whole political parties, I think we don't really fully understand. So someone will say, I'm conservative because I'm a Republican. But then it's like, okay, well, let's break down your beliefs. What does that actually mean to you? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And then that's where it starts to get a little bit more muddy.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. Yeah, because it's like you're in two camps. It's like there's no spectrum, but everyone's on the spectrum somewhere. Like everyone's on the spectrum. I think a green flag. I'll say green flag or red flag. A green flag is, how many male friends does she have?
Oh, please expand on that. We need to know.
If she's an attractive girl and she has many male friends, and women, you are not stupid. You know your male friends want to sleep with you. I don't know if that's a green or red. I don't know if that's a red flag. I don't know. Because by default, does that mean women shouldn't have male friends? I don't know. If she has a lot, I don't know. I'd be like, what? Why?
What is a lot? Does it mean that she has more male friends than she has female friends?
Well, no, because I know girls who have more male friends because they speak more. Their words, not mine. They're more direct, and they'll say what they think is true, and that has kind of repelled some women and attracted men, as in like, oh, they just get on better with guys because guys tend to talk very frankly.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna retract that one. I don't think it's a thing. I'm gonna retract it. What about you? What does it say anything to you as a woman if a guy has a lot of female friends?
It does. I'm actually really glad that you said that. So, for one, I will say that if a person tells me that they don't get along with someone who is the same sex as them, that's a little bit strange to me, honestly. Although, if I sit and I think about why it's strange, I don't know if I can give you a very direct answer, but it's like, the people who are the same sex as you, like you go through, you might experience things in a more similar way with them than you would someone of the opposite sex. So where is the disconnect with why you can't get along with someone who is similar to you in that regard? And I guess I say that from a woman's perspective, because I know a lot of women who say, yeah, I don't get along with women. And then you befriend them and you realize why they don't get along with women. Like there's usually some
like
sort of quality. I don't know, just like they could be very catty, maybe they have situations where they don't respect boundaries with women that are dating a guy. So if their friend is dating a guy, they're okay with messing with that same person. It's always more layered than that, but it always boils down to something, at least one thing where it's like, I can see why you don't get along with someone of the same sex.
Do you think women are more likely to choose a man over their girlfriend? As in, like, so you said about a girl messing around with the same guy.
Yeah.
Do you think that's more likely to happen with women than men?
To make sure I'm answering this correctly, you're specifically asking if a woman would cross that boundary of sleeping with one of her friends' exes more so than a man would?
Yeah.
So this is tricky because with men, I think it's a little bit more layered. So I think men tend to have categories of women. So there's the women who they didn't really care about. They might have just smashed them. They're like, okay, bro, yeah, you can mess with her. Like it's more of a camaraderie thing, which sounds horrible, but I think that happens more so than it does with women. Women tend to be a little bit more protective, where it's like any guy who I've dealt with, it doesn't matter if it was a one-night stand, whether I was dating them long-term, I would prefer you not talk to that person ever.
Why is that?
I don't know. Maybe it has more to do, again, like we were talking about, with the emotions being tied to sex, where you said men can separate it. So you can have sex with someone, it doesn't mean anything to you, where a woman could feel like she's having casual sex with someone, but it really does mean something. Because if it didn't, why are you not okay with someone having sex with someone that you were casual with?
That's true. What about a woman go after like a girl's like ex-boyfriend?
Oh, okay. I actually think women do that more so than men do.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've seen.
Yeah.
Why? Why do you think that is?
Um, a place is gonna add more confusion. I feel like a sense of brotherhood is stronger than a sense of sisterhood in today's climate.
I think I know why. I have an alternate reason.
Why? Why do you think?
And this goes back to flaws and standards.
Yeah.
Out of 100 women, 40 will meet a guy's standards. So if there's one in there that he can't pursue because it was his boy's ex, he'd be like, fair enough. There's plenty more fish in the sea. Out of 100 men, if a woman's like, there's only one guy that I feel is for me, and it's my girl's ex, I might have to take him.
So it's like slim pickings. You don't have as many options. So okay.
Yeah, I think because if women have much higher standards, the higher, yeah, because it's about quality, isn't it? So if there's a one quality guy, and also if he's been with one of your friends, then it's kind of, especially if they're together for a while, it's kind of like, okay, he's a man who can do relationships.
Yeah.
As well, as opposed to, oh, this guy just had sex with my friend and left. So I think it's because it's hard to find men that women want. So when they find one, they're like, I'm more willing to do more to get him.
Okay. I can see that. I do have a question though.
Yeah.
Do you think that men find women in a relationship to be more attractive than women who are single?
No, I don't know. I don't think it plays a part at all.
Okay.
Because women can subconsciously, women use other women as pre-selectors for a man's value. So what I mean is, like, if a woman sees an average Joe walking down the street, she wouldn't think anything of him. If she sees him with 5 beautiful women around him, she'll go, what's this guy about?
Yep.
Right? His desirability has gone up as a potential mate because he's been pre-selected by other women in her eyes. Whereas men, it doesn't really work the same. Like, if there's a woman and he doesn't find her attractive, it doesn't matter how many other guys want her. It's not going to make her more desirable to him. And I think the reason, and I understand, I think the reason other women subconsciously, maybe evolutionary, they use other women as pre-selectors to see a guy's value is because women have higher standards, and there are more things a guy must tick. So it's like, okay, maybe visually he doesn't tick this, but he might tick every other box. He might be a Mark Zuckerberg, and I don't know it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree with you, but that's kind of what I was getting at. So I think that there's something that happens where women are just more attracted to men who are they're being more attained by women. They're more desired by women, kind of like you were saying, if you see a guy walking down the street with 5 women, or there's something about a man being in a relationship or this feeling of being off limits that women like. I don't know why it is. Maybe you guys in the comments, you can give your perspective of why. But going back into a woman talking to a guy that her friend did, that off limits type of thing, some women get off on that.
Really? As in, why do you think they get off on it?
I don't know. It's like a whole off limit. So it's kind of the same thing with, like, so when I asked you the question of, do you feel like men see women as more attractive when they're in a relationship, and you said no, I think that's the opposite for women. There could be a guy that no one paid attention to. If you see that he's in a relationship now, I promise you, 9 out of 10 guys would say my DMs, my likes, my whatever went up. Women are trying to come at me more because they see I have a woman.
Yeah, I've experienced that. Yeah, that's true.
But I have no idea why that is.
I think it's like, maybe, do you think there's an aspect of it that is like, because I think most women know that if you throw sex at 99% of guys, they're going to take it.
Mm-hmm.
So like, at least for as a sexual option, most single guys aren't really off limits. But a man who's taken, what I'm trying to say is, I guess maybe women don't meet that many guys who are off limits to them sexually. Whereas as guys are used to it all the time. Like, most women are off limits to him sexually, right? Because most women, the average guy doesn't get chosen. So when she meets a guy who's like, oh, this is a guy I can't throw sex and get his attention, maybe that's more alluring. I don't know.
So Trev said women innately like competition. Do you agree with that?
I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that women like competition.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's that if women are competing for a man, then he is a man of value. Like, a woman competing for a man is a sign that he's a man of value, essentially, because women wouldn't compete for him otherwise.
So Trev also said that a man who is in a relationship is vetted, which makes him more attractive.
Very
How
true.
do you feel about that?
Yeah, pre-selected. Yeah, he's been vetted by someone else, another woman.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's very, very twisted.
I
guess that makes sense. But it's very interesting because, so the reason why I don't know how I feel about the whole competition comment is that women don't like, let me change what I'm going to say. Consciously, women don't like the idea of competing with women, which is why I think a lot of women get bothered when they hear men nowadays say, no, I feel like you have to compete, like put in effort to compete with other women who are trying to get my attention as well. And women will say, no way. But I don't know, in situations like this, maybe we are subconsciously competing and we're okay with that. I don't know.
Well, the truth of the matter is, whether you're a man or woman, you're competing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, everyone competes, whether you like it or not. If there's a man you want, the likelihood is, as a woman, if there's a man that you want, other women probably want him too. Because guys know, if there's a woman I want, I know there are other guys who want her. Like, most women, 99% of women have men who want them. So everyone is competing. Everyone is. But I think the difference is, women compete for the top guys. So if a guy's being competed for, then he's got value, right? It's a sign, because if other women wouldn't compete for him otherwise. I wanted to ask you a question. Who I have reservations about asking this, but I feel like I should.
Go for it.
I feel like some people in the chat might have some things to say. Nowadays, who is the prize, men or women?
Oh my God. This is so ironic that you asked this, because I just had this conversation.
Oh yeah?
My goodness. I hate this so much. I hate this discussion.
Let me rephrase.
Yeah.
Who is more of a prize, desirable men or desirable women?
Just by absolute, I agree with you, and I'm going to address your comment when I answer this. If we're looking at numbers,
yeah,
feels so horrible saying this, I would say probably a desirable man. Okay. Because there are, if I'm not mistaken, the ratio is still that there's more women versus men. So you think of the quantity factor. But I also think that it's more likely for a man to be able to have multiple different women than a woman having multiple different men, if that makes sense. Yeah. So in that regard, like, yeah, that man is going to be seen as a top choice no matter how many women he has, because it's socially acceptable. Whereas I don't know if you guys would say, I'm a desirable woman, but I want to have 5 different men. I don't know if I would be seen in the same way. And so
Yeah,
I
that's
think
fair.
when you factor in all of those things, it's always going to be the man who's
Yeah,
more desirable.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think it's like you said. Ultimately, because it's harder to be a desirable guy, that's probably seen as
Mm,
towards the prize because most
okay.
guys can't do it.
Because the effort, because I mean, yeah, because women are more so valued on youth and fertility and beauty
Mm,
and things like that, which we don't really have to work for unless you stay in shape and things like that, of course. But
yeah,
I guess more work goes into attaining financial stability and things that
yeah.
women look for.
But ironically, it's funny because we may say that desirable men might be considered more the prize,
Hmm.
but desirable women have way more options than any man will ever have ever. Way more. Like the attractive woman, like who works at McDonald's but
Hmm.
is on social media, has way more options than like an athlete. An athlete has a lot of options. Don't get me wrong, but like she has way more options, like way more.
Really? Okay.
Oh,
Hmm.
100%. And like I said, now there's an argument. There might be just more sexual options.
Right.
Uh no, I'd just say like if she's attractive, like a lot of guys would want to commit to her as well. Well, most guys would. That is true. But yeah.
Really?
Well,
Ah, okay.
well, I mean, like, you know, um, the average guy for sure.
Just
She's
because she's
attractive.
attractive, they would want to commit to her.
Okay, what I mean is they would be open to having a relationship with her. They're not looking at her and just going, okay, now I just want her for sex, is what I'm saying.
I don't know about that.
You don't think? You don't think if a girl's like very attractive, you think average guys are like, nah, she's just sex for me.
Well, I think it depends on the substance that she has. I think we're seeing that a lot on social media today, where there's a lot of beautiful women out there. If you think of all the Instagram models and things like that, but
Mm.
I think that if a guy is kind of looking and seeing that she's a beautiful woman, but you're scrolling through her page and it's like, okay, what else? What else is there about this girl? Your just looks. There's 500 more Instagram models out there, so it's like if you aren't making yourself stand out by providing substance, then why would he commit to you versus just seeing you for your looks or for the physical things that you have to offer?
I agree with you, but I think the amount of men that do that and can afford to discriminate like that is very, very small. I think
Hmm.
most men go, wow, like if I could get even one of these 500 Instagram models, I'd be happy. Most men are
Okay.
like, I think most men are like that. But the guys who are like, okay, yeah, she's really hot, but what else does she have? I think that's very small because, like I said, most men can't. I mean, that's why OnlyFans is so popular. The guys commit more to girls they've never met through their financials. Like they're paying every month. They've never met this girl, and they're paying every month. Just, I mean, they're
True.
seeing a lot, but I think
Oh
because
goodness.
yeah, you don't have to be as a girl. All you have to do is be hot to succeed in OnlyFans, and you have to do explicit stuff. But you you
Yes.
don't have to be famous. Like as a guy, you better have some clout before you start that. Otherwise, you are not making anything.
Interesting. Okay, so we have a couple of comments.
Go for it.
So one said, no, just because she's cute means nothing. He just wants to have sex. So Daniel said that.
Okay.
And then Brian had an opposing view and said it comes down to, are you moldable? What is moldable? Can we talk about that a little bit more?
Moldable. What? So if you can mold a woman into the kind of if you can mold a girl into the kind of woman you want her to be for the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, there's an argument for that. Personally, I'd rather not have to mold. I'd rather she's just the kind of woman that I want. Um, but yeah, if she's like, yeah, I mean, if she's younger, then I can't remember. I can't remember this comedian's name. Hilarious. She's American. She's quite young. She's like late 20s. But she in her stand-up, she says, you have until 30 to kind of sort out all your issues because it's kind of like a lake. Whatever shit is in the lake at 30, it freezes over and it's there forever. That's it. That's it
Yeah.
now. So I I think moldable is like, okay, a guy can take out the shit he doesn't want and put in the shit that he does.
Okay, so if you have a woman who is average appearance and you don't have to mold her, so she has all the qualities that you're looking for, most of them, do you feel like she would be more desirable than a woman who is very, very attractive, but she's moldable, yet lacking the qualities that you want?
Very attractive but moldable.
Yep.
No, guys would probably choose that one. Yeah.
The one who's moldable.
Yeah, if she's very attractive, yeah.
Okay.
Because it means she has the potential to be the kind of woman that the average woman is.
Okay.
But if you're saying, oh, a girl who's very attractive, but she's not the kind, she doesn't have those qualities, I think most guys would take the average woman, because when a guy is looking for something serious, he'll go down in looks to go up in other qualities that he values.
Mm-hmm.
How far he'll go down is dependent on the guy, but
So this is interesting because, again, this ties into our differences in what we value, because it sounds to me like you guys will pick a more attractive woman and build her up in a way. I don't want to say like a passion project, but that's what we talk about when we mention men.
yes.
But it is definitely frowned upon if women pick a very attractive man and try to build him. So do you think that has to do with what we value? So men valuing looks, but women aren't supposed to value looks as much?
Do you think it's frowned upon if a woman chooses a guy based on his potential?
Yes.
Really? I don't think it's frowned upon.
Yes.
I just think women don't do it anymore. I just think they choose
women do it
guys
all
who
the
are already
time.
there.
No.
No?
No.
No?
No, I think that it is definitely frowned upon. And I think that's why women get themselves into situations with a lot of men who the average man looking in would say is no good. Why'd you waste your time with him? Because we
Oh, I
see some sort of potential
see.
in him. Like we're trying to change him. And it's like, well, why would you do that? Why would you change someone? But it seems like men are open to doing that if the man, or if the woman, I'm sorry, looks good.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Hmm. I think it depends on who is leading in the relationship.
Okay.
If a woman is trying to change a man, it means she is leading.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because like, you know, it does happen. Like if you take let's say you take a 23-year-old young, very attractive guy and he's seeing a 40-year-old cougar, she's gonna mold him.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's more likely leading in the relationship. Likewise, if you take a very young, attractive girl with a guy who's a bit older, more experienced, he's like more likely leading. So that's why he can mold her, because he's leading the relationship, right?
Okay.
So I think what it is if a woman chooses a man based on potential and she wants to mold him, but he's not, you know, if he's the kind of man who has leadership qualities, i.e., you can't mold him, he chooses which man he's going to become, then that's when I think the shame comes, because it's like, well, you saw these qualities, why did you pick him? Does that make sense? What do you think?
I don't know. So there's a comment that I agree with it here. And so Shea Butter said, this is where we as men have to admit that there is hypocrisy within us. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it kind of boils back down to what we value. Because if you're okay, so what do men say they want out of women? I keep hearing this: feminine, fit, and cooperative, right?
Sure.
Would you say the top three that people say? And so you're choosing this woman who maybe she's fit, like she has all those features, she looks good, but maybe she's not as feminine as you like, and she's not as cooperative. Why in your head does it make sense to say, okay, I'm going to take this woman and mold her, but then you turn around and say to a woman, well, this man didn't possess the qualities that you find valuable, which are leadership, maybe stability, things like that. But you were wrong if it doesn't work out in your favor. Why'd you pick him? Because it's like, well, why did you pick this woman who doesn't possess the features that you want or the qualities that you want?
I think that's fair. I think if a woman has qualities that a guy doesn't want, he chooses her, and then he gets burned by those same qualities later, then no, he can't complain. He can't complain, because it's like, well, you saw that. Same with women. But yeah, I think if a guy is older and he's clearly going to be the one leading the relationship, then it's a more rewarding risk to try and mold her, because if he's older, more experienced, he's more likely to be able to mold her. Whereas I think it's less likely that a woman's able to mold a guy unless he's incredibly submissive to her. Really, he has to be submissive to her will and what she wants. I think that's the only way to mold someone.
Okay. So Darius says, it depends on the man. And he said, younger men would choose a pretty bird, but old heads like me will take an average woman who's dope and basically a perfect match. Do you agree with that?
100%. 100%. A guy will go down in looks to go up in the qualities he wants. If she's a match, yeah, 100%. I think it gets to a point where, depends on the guy, but it gets to a point, if you're a guy and you've got experience with very attractive women, the beauty is powerful, but it plays less of it has less effect on your decisions in who you choose. You know, whereas if it's a guy who's never, you know, that he's been surrounded by attractive girls and he's never had the opportunity with them, and then he's 33, starts earning, you know, hitting his stride in his career, and now he's getting it, he's like, yeah, I'm just choosing the hottest girl because I've never been able to do this before.
Yeah.
And then he probably gets to his 40s and it's like, I just want a woman who matches me, man. I don't want to deal with these young, attractive girls who are like a headache and require so much attention and want to party all the time. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think that is a very true comment. Yeah, it's true.
Okay. We actually have a really good question from Mr. Greenard.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that right that time. Sorry. So thank you for the super chat. He says, so what are your thoughts about men and women tapping out on love because of bad experiences?
So they've had bad experiences and now they're like, nah, I'm done with men, or I'm done with women. I'm not going to sit here and say they're wrong for doing that, because I don't know what experiences that they've had. But what I will say, anything worth having comes with risk in life. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
If you want love, you have to risk being burned and getting hurt. For some people, if the risk has really not paid off for them, I can understand why they're like, I don't want to play this game anymore. You know, it's like gambling. If somebody has gambled away their entire savings and then they finally make some money, they're like, I am not gambling again.
Yeah.
But some people are like, nah, gambling's fun and I've won some and I've lost some, but I'm still willing to play. That's what I would say. What would you say?
Maybe I would take this from a different approach.
Okay.
I'm very big on energy. And I think that the energy that you put out is what you will attract. And someone said this earlier in the chat where we were talking about like if you keep having the same situations with people, it's probably something that you need to work on first so you stop attracting people. And they disagree with that, but I don't know if I would agree with them. I think that if you hold yourself to a high standard, by default, there are going to be some people who know that you are kind of out of their league. Some will still try, but if some realize like, wow, she holds herself to this standard, and I know I'm down here, I'm not even going to try her. So if a person is at the point where they're like, I have to completely give up on love because I keep having bad experiences, I really would want to hear how that person has reflected on what they could have improved to have a different outcome. Because I think it's a lot easier for us to say, I'm just dumb because this sucks, versus again doing that introspection, doing that shadow work to see what we need to improve to have a better outcome. So I don't know. I think it can be very double-sided.
I think that's a very good way of looking at it, and I would agree with you. Listen, we've been going for almost 2 hours and 40 minutes.
I know. We gotta close
this one easy. I know. I think to round off for the chat and for the audience, let's. What is one flaw of yours that you're working on? And I will share one of mine.
Oh, that's a really good one. I love that question. A flaw that I'm working on is my perfectionism, because I hold myself to a high standard, and in turn, I hold other people to very high standards as well. And they're often unrealistic. And so I think that the expectations that I have with friendships, partners, it doesn't really work in my favor a lot of the time. So I have to learn to give people grace because no one is perfect.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, what's yours?
The flaw that I am working on is having not be as sensitive to things that I feel are disrespectful. So if I feel maybe it's the Nigerian in me, my family are Nigerian, and so in Nigerian culture, respect is very important. But if I feel a girl does something that I feel is disrespectful, I think I need to have a bit more patience of understanding why that happened. Now it could be a thing of she just was disrespectful, but I think in the past it's happened where a girl's done something that I felt was disrespectful, and I've been like, nah, I'm out. Because if she respected me and she wanted me, she wouldn't do that. But everybody's different. Not everybody has my upbringing, my culture, and everything like that. So yeah, I'll probably say that's it. I think it's a nice thing to.
That's a really, really good one.
Round off on. Look, Tanisha, as always, it's always a pleasure talking to you.
I know. Yes, likewise.
So I want to say, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Chat. Thank you for engaging. And yeah, any comments after, leave below, and we'll do one of these again because you're just too great to talk with, not to talk to.
Yes, and one last thing that I would like to say, thank you to everyone who is subscribed to my channel, and please check out Kit's channel too if you like this discussion. He has such an open-minded approach to everything. As soon as I found his channel, I binge watched so much of his stuff. So major kudos to you with everything that you're doing. But thank you guys for helping me reach 11K. My family is growing. I'm so happy. I love all of you guys. And until next time.
See you later.